Hey you guys, how are you doing? Today we're going to start recapping the manhwa, Vengeance from a Saint Full of Wounds. And I'm really excited about sharing it with you guys. I mean, it's got everything really. From a heart-throbbing romance to a gripping revenge plot, betrayal, fantasy, magic, well, you name it. Hope you love it as much as I do, and please, if you do, remember to like and subscribe. It really helps us be able to post more videos. So now, let's jump right into Lua's ordeal. We are introduced to a young Lua, working as a magical healer in a temple. Apparently, she's an orphan and has been allowed to stay there in exchange for her helping to heal those who go to the temple for help. She's a candidate for saint of the temple, along with other young girls who also possess healing abilities. However, Lua's abilities have the particularity that they don't immediately heal the wounds, but rather, she transfers the wounds onto herself and then heals herself. This has made the other candidates for Saintess to really judge and shun her, calling her different and saying she's not a saint. After she heals a young child who was injured after a demon attack, she hears the other candidates bad-mouthing her when her best friend, Countess Arian, comes to greet her all bubbly. She congratulates her for her job that day, hugging her and telling her not to mind what the other girls are saying of her. She even tells her that she's always going to be by her side. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. Of course, this makes Lua tear up. That's when Sir Garrett, Lua's all-time crush, appears in the temple. They seem to go way back, when Lua was just starting to learn how to use her healing abilities as a child in the temple. He'd come in with a cut on his hand and had asked her to heal it. She struggles at first, but after some encouragement from him, she finally gets it. Some time passed since then, and since then, he became the commander of the Knights. Arian knows her friend harbors a huge crush on Garrett, and even shows herself as being supportive. However, sometime later, Garrett comes in with fatal wounds after an encounter with a demon beast. No one thinks anything can be done to help him, but even so, after he's left alone, Lua goes to heal him. She's successful, but after transferring his wounds onto her, she can't heal herself completely. She wakes up a month later with a maiden looking after her wounds. The woman treats her horribly, even telling her that she hoped she'd never wake up as everyone had thought she was slacking off on her healing duties. Hurriedly, Lua asks how Garrett is doing, to which the woman replies that he's doing great because Arianne has risked her life to save him. What the hell? Lua is even more devastated after she tells her that they are together now. That bish! Lua storms off to her bedroom, wanting to look for answers. As she's running through the temple, she hears people talking around her about her, saying that it's rumored she likes sleeping around with a lot of men, and saying that in comparison with Arianne, she's not worthy of being a saint, even saying that she doesn't even deserve to be living in the temple. She hears everyone talk wonders of Arianne, saying she does deserve to become a saint as she saved the hero of the Empire, Sir Garrett, and that it's rumored that Arianne will even take the place of the priest. Someone then says that all the rumors about Lua are true, as they heard them coming from Arianne. Lua then finds Arianne with Garrett and begs her to tell her why she started all those rumors about her. Arianne plays victim with Garrett, saying she's scared and to get Lua away from her. Garrett then, enraged, shoves Lua to the ground and tells her he hates her, as Arianne told him she was only using him, and that she was physically abusive towards Arianne while she pretended to be her friend. Lua is crushed, sobbing on the floor, seeing at how everyone turned their backs on her. While Garrett is walking away, Arianne comes close to her, telling her she's been wanting to see her like this since forever, only pretending to be her friend. After Lua is alone on the floor, her hair starts to transform. Some guys notice her and start to pick on her, one of them even grabbing her by the hair. Enraged, she grabs his arm and makes a wound appear on him. Everyone, including herself, is surprised. She's never felt so powerful and decides she's done helping people. The temple Lua lived in was the temple of the goddess of health, Luce, who came to be a goddess as, hundreds of years ago, she saved a lot of people's lives during an epidemic in the kingdom of Zed. Now, every girl who possesses healing abilities are considered to be saint candidates, and only women in nobility are born with this power. The position of saint has been vacant for over 10 years in the temple, as it's said that no eligible candidate had appeared in that time. Lua's idea of becoming a saint had come from her family, who before their death had encouraged her to do so. Some bullies show up and start hassling Lua while she's having tea, calling her incompetent and mocking her new hair color. She ignores them, but annoyed, one of them questions her directly. Lua's so over all of this. She gives them a snarky reply, even telling the girl close to her that her breath smells. They've been bullying her since forever, and before, she used to think Arian was defending her, but now she realizes that she had been the one enticing them to treat her that way all along. The girl continues to harass Lua, who snaps and transfers second-degree burns to her. Everyone is astounded. Her abilities are new to them, but Lua remembers her own mother had the same power, which allowed her to transfer and store wounds she had transferred to herself from others. She takes away the burns from the girl and hurries back to her room. While heading there, she meets the second prince, Sven Jedlon, who is known for having a bad reputation. He stops her, wanting to talk to her about her powers and offering her revenge. In the royal gardens, Prince Jedlon talks about plans he has to team up with her. Apparently, there has been an increase in attacks from demonic beasts closer to the more populated lands, which is strange as they always had lived farther out on the outskirts of the empire. Sven has the theory that people high up in the church are responsible for this, purposefully leading the beast to populated towns in order to injure a lot of citizens, who would then resort to the candidates for saint for healing. This would cause people's reverence towards the church to grow more and more, eventually surpassing that of the royal family, giving the church the opportunity to take over the kingdom. Sven tells Lua he suspects the high priest, which shocks her immensely, as when all of her family had died of a sudden illness, he had been the one to look for her and take her into the church after hearing of her powers. Lua is horrified at this plan, and Sven adds that this isn't the high priest's plan alone, as he believes 3 noble families are involved as well, all led by Earl Travers, Arianne's father. Lua is dismayed at the thought that maybe Arianne might be involved as well. Sven tells her he's received information that suggests the high priest has made a deal with a tribe of another country, the Yuan people, who can control demonic beasts. He then asks for her help to gather information from the church, also suggesting that Lua's powers can be of service as well, and offering her, in return, revenge towards Arian Travers. She asks for time to think about it, as she's only learned already that her trust must be earned, and decides to look into herself before giving him any answers. While going back to her chambers, Lua crosses paths with the high priest Felix Ronhartz. Apparently, the Ronhartz family has been in charge of the church and the organization of the saint candidacy since forever. He greets Lua and tells her he's glad she's recovered from her injuries, telling her that once she's fully recovered, she should go back to work. This really annoys Lua, as she realizes that the high priest always expected her to work more than the other candidates, not giving her any days off and telling her that it was for her own good, as her powers were weaker than the others. Lua goes to the royal library to investigate the Yuan tribe. She finds a book which says that they can communicate with demonic beasts through the use of their magical language and have a tattoo resembling a scale on their necks. In the library, she is greeted once again by Sven, who is now accompanied by a man. Sven introduces him as Shiji Rubin, his most trusted aide, telling her he recruited him from the West due to his remarkable abilities. Even though Shiji is not from the Yuan tribe, he has learned a bit of their language from a passing merchant, and Sven is offering Lua to be taught by him, to which she accepts. When leaving, Sven asks himself if Lua really is his goddess. Strange. Some days later, following Sven's advice, Lua is sweeping through the church at night, wanting to find something suspicious on the high priest. She follows a figure to the Tower of Prayer, where no one is allowed entry as it's going to be demolished. There, she recognizes the priest's assistant waiting for the figure, who seems to be a member of the Yuan tribe, and opens the tower for him to meet with the high priest. Before going into the tower to spy on the high priest, Lua has to take care of his servant who's standing guard outside. She decides to use her power, but has to be smart about it as she has to make physical contact with him for it to work. She appears before him, passing off as a lost servant. He gives her direction to the quarters and she knocks him out by giving him a tremendous headache when she grabs his hand in gratitude. She then swiftly enters the tower, hiding behind some boxes, where she hears the high priest talking to the Yuan tribe member, congratulating him for having led the beasts to a nearby town. Lua is then shocked to see Arianne present as well, who is demanding the high priest to make her Saintess already. He tells her to be patient as the plan had just started, telling her he'd already given her his support for her engagement to Garrett, unsettling Lua even further. Arian then starts talking bad of Lua, telling the priest she never knew her place for having a crush on Garrett, even calling her disgusting. She then asks the high priest if they can get rid of her once she becomes Saintess, and he tells her that's right, but that their plan is just starting. Right before he says his true intentions, Lua makes a noise, which is noticed by the Yuan boy. She's saved by Shijin, who appears there and releases rats, causing Arian to freak out. They take advantage of that to leave. Outside the tower, she meets Sven and accepts his offer to team up to stop the high priest and get revenge on Arianne. Lua wakes up the next day and remembers that the night before, Sven also gave her a key to a secret greenhouse he owns in the back gardens of the royal palace. He told her no one else knows about it but him and asked her to meet him there the next day. Lua is determined to get revenge on Arianne and stop the high priest's plan, so she decides to trust Sven. Once in the greenhouse, she is greeted by Sven and Shijin. There, she has tea with Sven, while Sven is being all courteous and charming to her, telling her that now that they are accomplices, they should speak more casually with one another, and even telling her she can go to the greenhouse to read. This makes Lua blush, as she realizes he'd noticed her love for books when they met in the library. Sven then gives her a portfolio about Viscount Rose Desmond, also known as the Viscount of Lust, as he's famously known to be quite the player and adulterer, even though he has a wife and a young son. Sven tells her he's one of the 3 nobles helping the high priest with his plans, using his connections to trade with the West and giving them goods in exchange for their services. Sven also thinks he's responsible for smuggling into the country sedated beasts. Lua is enraged, as she's seen firsthand what the result of the demonic beast's attacks are. Sven tells her that his plan is to gather some of the Viscount's papers to use as evidence against him and the high priest, and he asks Lua to go as his +1 to the Viscount's birthday ball. At the same time, it also seems Arianne has been invited, and she's now asking Garrett to go with her. Garrett doesn't seem too excited to go to the ball, and tells Arianne he kinda doesn't want to go. This really upsets her, and she insists, putting on some puppy eyes which wins stupid Garrett over. Right then, 2 of Garrett's men appear asking for help as one of them got badly injured while training. Garrett looks at his leg and tells him it's broken, but not to worry as Arian is there and she can help him. He asks her for that favor, but of course, lazy-ass Arianne refuses after a long debate in her head just because she's tired. She puts on another puppy, teary-eyed show, telling Garrett she'd rather not, as she's been working really hard and using her powers a lot. As if! She's even admitted to herself that she hasn't been doing anything lately, as she used to toss it all to poor Lua. The soldiers leave to look for another healer, and after Garrett expresses concern for his soldier, Arian responds by telling him she doesn't care for something like that, which really ticks him off. She starts talking about clothes for the ball, but Garrett's quite displeased at her, but then ends up convincing himself it's all fine because she's cute, basically. Kinda feel sorry for him, honestly. How can he be so foolish? Lua is in her room looking for what to wear to the ball, but she can't find anything befitting, as whatever she had been destroyed by bullies, and the one good ribbon she owned, she ended up giving to Arianne way back. More than giving, Arian practically took it from her, telling her she shouldn't wear something so flashy as she could catch the bully's attention. Gosh, what a bish. Lua then thinks of buying something new, but she has no money, as the high priest never approved her request to receive an allowance, even though it was common for candidates to receive one from the church. The same insolent maid who was tending for Lua when she woke up comes into her room, without knocking, and gives her a huge suitcase from Shiji. She then goes on to complain that it was heavy and questions why she has to deliver it to her, even going as far as asking her if she decided to seduce Shiji as well. Lua is fed up. She wants to use her powers on her, but contains herself, as for Sven's plans, they better be kept a secret. She then decides to confront her instead, reminding her that those comments not only insult her but also Shijin, as he's Sven's loyal aide, the prince himself. The maid is even more insolent than ever, putting excuses for herself, but with a steely look, Lua reminds her of their social positions and warns her to be more careful. The maid finally backs down, bows, apologizes, and leaves. Good for you, girl. Now relieved, Lua opens up the box and finds a gorgeous dress, along with beautiful shoes and a necklace. There's also a letter from Sven, telling her he commissioned it from the best tailor in the capital, and even picked out the accessories himself. How cute. He even tells her he sent out an official request for her to have a long vacation, as he's realized the high priest never let her rest. My boy is a true prince indeed. Of course, our girl blushes at Sven's kindness. She notices she needs to find some earrings, and remembers she still has one left from her mother. It was a memento she had given her. When Lua was just a child, she used her healing powers for the first time outside her family on a boy. That's when she lost the other earring. She then remembers that it was not long after that she came home from playing and found her whole family dead from an illness. Kinda sus. The day of the ball comes around, and Lua is picked up by a carriage sent from Sven, guarded personally by Shijin. Sven couldn't go personally because, being a member of royalty, he has to be there earlier. Once they arrive at the venue, a dazzling dressed-up Sven welcomes Lua. She's a bit taken off guard by his majestic looks. I mean, same sis. He then compliments her, telling her she looks beautiful, and he's glad he picked the right colors to make her gorgeous white hair stand out. This knocks Lua a bit down, as she's been bullied for her white hair before, telling Sven he shouldn't overdo the flattery and that her hair is a bit strange. He gets closer to her and takes her braid in his hand, kissing it, and telling her she should be proud of it as it represents all the pain she's had to endure. OMG, marry this guy now! Lua starts to tear up, and Sven even gets her to laugh by telling her her hair matches to his and even to Shijin's, making Shijin a bit uncomfortable and causing Lua to giggle. They share a spellbinding look and then go to the party. Once inside, Sven tells Lua the Viscount is really sharp but has a weakness for beautiful women, and so they decide to wait for the right time for Lua to approach him. Sven is really slowed down by all the people wanting to speak to him, being a prince and all, and so Lua decides to take a look around herself alone, trying to see if she can gather some info. She notices a maid who seems to be unwell, or rather nervous about something. Just as she goes to approach her, she is intercepted by Arian and Garrett. Of course, Arian starts to subtly harass Lua as soon as she sees her. They haven't seen each other since she showed her true colors to her in the garden. Neither has she seen Garrett since. Lua harbors extreme resentment towards him for having tossed her to the ground, as she should. Arian mockingly asks her if she went to the ball alone, asking a quite uncomfortable Garrett if he doesn't think it's a bit sad. Lua patiently tells them she was invited, and she does have a partner, which sparks Arian's curiosity. She then notices Lua's white hair, even laughing and telling her she looks like an old woman. Lua has to restrain herself from becoming violent, but after remembering Sven's words, she calmly replies that she actually likes it better like this. Garrett grabs Arian's shoulder and tells her they should go, so she doesn't need to be kind to her bully. I mean, is he deliberately this blind? Arian complains, telling him she wants to see if Lua was lying about her partner, and then starts asking about her clothes. Just as she's trying to forcefully take Lua's earring from her, Sven appears, hugging Lua and introducing himself to Garrett and Arianne. They greet him formally as second prince, and then Arianne rudely asks him what a prince is doing with an orphan. Sven politely replies that they are together that night because she helped him with his charity work for orphans, and as a repayment, he invited her there that night. People around them seem pretty convinced about that story, even remembering who Lua's parents were, as her father was a baron, and sympathizing with her and her family's horrible tragedy. Seems Sven knows how to win a crowd over. Arian seems convinced enough, and then takes off to go dance with Garrett. She walks away, but Sven grabs Garrett's arm and tells him he's very gullible and has awful taste in women, leaving him shocked. Well, someone had to tell him, right? Sven then takes Lua and leaves them, leaving a confused Garrett and an enraged Arianne behind. Everyone's dancing in the ballroom now, and Sven invites Lua to share a dance with him. However, Lua clams up and tells him she's not a good dancer, but after a pouty face from Sven, she agrees to dance with him if the song she's good at comes along. Honestly, I love the dynamic between these two. Seconds later, they notice the maid that seemed to be nervous before holding a knife, muttering something to herself while she heads straight towards the Viscount. With a lunatic and yet terrified tool, she's repeating to herself that she has to kill him, even if it costs her her life. Luckily, Sven intercepts her smoothly before anyone notices anything's going on, discreetly making her give him the knife and calming her down. The three of them go outside, where Sven and Lua start questioning her. Sobbing and on her knees, she confesses that she intended to kill the Viscount as he had, well, done something unimaginable to her. I don't even want to mention it, but you guys can probably imagine what this lustful, dirty pig did to that poor girl. She tells them that she used to be a maid there, but after getting engaged to her childhood friend, she decided to quit as they were going to move to the outskirts of the capital for her husband to open up a bakery there. However, right when she gave in her notice, the Viscount called her to his chambers, where he forcefully took advantage of her. After that, she told her fiancé, who was enraged, and confronted the Viscount. That only resulted in more tragedy for the both of them, as he was now making it impossible for the man to open his new bakery. Lua is enraged, and along with Sven, promises the woman to help her get revenge on the Viscount and help them open their bakery without the Viscount's interference. Back inside the ballroom, Sven expresses his surprise towards Lua taking on the responsibility of also solving Charlotte's, the maid's, plight. She tells him she plans on carrying out their plan, but she'd also like to try solving Charlotte's issue at the same time. That's when Lua notices they are playing the song she knows how to dance, and without missing a beat, Sven takes her by the hand onto the dance floor. Everyone starts staring at them, complimenting them on their elegant dance, even comparing their dance to Arianne's and Garrett's dance, noting they like Sven and Lua's better. Of course, this infuriates Arianne, and after being asked by Garrett why she's mad, she literally straight up calls Lua and Sven pests. How effing clueless can Garrett be? She's literally the worst. While dancing, Sven notices Lua's earring, the one she had left from her mother, and it is shown he's wearing the matching pair himself. He smiles, noticing she's the girl he's been looking for since he was a child. Apparently, he used to sneak out of the royal palace undercover to walk around the capital and learn the lives of his people. But one time he got really hurt after defending a young woman that was being attacked by some men. He was hiding in an alley after that, as he couldn't go back hurt as it would raise too many questions. That's when a young Lua found him. The first person she healed outside her family had been Sven all along. She got close to him and offered to heal him, even though it hurt a bit afterwards. Unfortunately, Sven had gotten used to feeling uncared for and unloved, as he had been named the Cursed Prince after his mother almost bled to death after giving birth to him. She had been saved by the Saintess at the time, but he had grown up followed by the stigma of that event. Lua had been the first person to ever show true care to him, but before he could ask her name, she left to return to her mother. He had become completely entranced by her after that, spending the next years of his life trying to find out who she was. He feels a bit guilty for finding her so late, not having been able to help her through all of the hardships she had to endure up until now. But now, he intends to become her sword and shield. OMG, I ship them so hard, guys. After their dance, the Viscount takes an interest in Lua, calling her beautiful and as elegant as a lily, all while leering at her with crazed eyes. She figures out that the best way to get him alone, to get the documents they need, is to seduce him. And given that she no longer cares about the rumors going around about her, she goes for it. The Viscount gets a bit close to her, even grabbing her chin, but Sven quickly reacts and elegantly diffuses the situation, telling the Viscount she's his partner for the night. However, Lua swiftly goes into character and manages to seduce him, resulting in him inviting her to his chambers after the next song ends. The Viscount then leaves to socialize some more. Sven, on the other hand, is trying his hardest to keep on a cordial smile, but his expression honestly ends up being terrifying. He then asks Lua for her hand and starts wiping it vigorously, telling her he wants to clean off the touch of that filthy man. He asks her where she learned to talk like that, and she just tells him that she imitated the other women who are always around the Viscount. Also reminding Sven she needs to be able to physically touch the Viscount to use her abilities on him. Sven then tells her that's fine, but they need to get everything ready before she meets him just in case, telling her also to call for him if anything goes wrong. Lua goes to the Viscount's room, where he is already waiting for her while drinking wine. In the blink of an eye, he grabs her wrists and forces her onto the bed, pinning her down by her wrists and demanding she tells him the real reason she's there. Of course, Lua is caught off guard by this question, fearing he somehow managed to find out her plan. Outside the Viscount's mansion, Shijin is scouring the perimeters in case anything weird happens, and he has to alert Sven and Lua. While walking around, he notices Arianne meeting with a strange hooded man. He can't recognize him, but he can see he's not Garrett. They are meeting in a place that looks like a warehouse, and Shijin is horrified to suspect that maybe they have a demonic beast trapped in there. He loses sight of them, but then rushes to look for Sven and Lua and warn them about his suspicions. In the meantime, the Viscount is questioning Lua's reasons for being there. He suggests reasons like money, status, and whatnot, relieving Lua as he clearly has no clue of their plan. He squeezes her wrists harder, demanding an answer, and she decides to play the rebel Saintess candidate card, telling him she just wants to experience a true thrill as her life as a Saintess candidate is too boring. He laughs, instantly buying that explanation. He then goes on to talk about Charlotte and how he likes when his partners resist, but would also like to try to be with someone who is there willingly. What the hell? That douchebag! I don't even want to think about how many other women he's hurt before. This also enrages Lua, who decides to show him no mercy. He releases one of her wrists and rips out part of her dress, and Lua takes advantage of that to touch him with the palm of her hand and transfers a skin disease onto him. She knows it's not fatal, and all it causes is an unbearable itch, but she bluffs, telling him she put poison in his wine and he'll die within minutes if she doesn't give him the antidote. Lua then tells him that she'll only give him the antidote if he gives her the documents containing his transactions with the West, shocking him completely. It doesn't take much time for him to give in and tell her where they are found, then demanding the antidote. However, Lua gives him a slip of paper and tells him that before she gives him the antidote, he has to sign it. The paper she handed him is a bill for a huge amount of money directed towards Charlotte. He's horrified at having to pay such high compensation to an ex-employee, but Lua is stern, telling him it not only accounts for the physical and emotional damage he's inflicted upon her, but also for the economical damage he caused by making her husband close his bakery. Charlotte also told her he's done what he did to her to countless other women, even leaving them pregnant and throwing them in the streets. She hopes to use the money to help them as well as their children. Love seeing women stand up for women. He refuses at first, but Lua tells him to choose between his wealth or his life, and of course, he ends up signing the bill. He then begs for the antidote, but Lua turns to him with an ice-cold look and tells him there's no such thing. Desperate, he yells for help, trembles, and ends up collapsing on the floor from the unbearable itchiness. Once passed out, Lua gets rid of his disease with the click of her fingers. As she leaves his bedroom, she's greeted by Sven, who looks at her worriedly and tells her he's glad she's okay. He then notices her ripped dress and becomes infuriated at the Viscount, already planning how to deal with him even though Lua just did. He gives her his coat for her to cover up, and she apologizes for being unsightly, which, obviously, makes Sven blush like a tomato, telling her that's not it, and that he'll make her understand from now on. Yeah, we're just as confused as Lua right now. That's when Shijin rushes to them. He tells them what he saw and his suspicions that there's a demonic beast in the precinct. As if on cue, they hear wails coming from the ballroom. They rush there and find a huge beast attacking the guests. Lua also notices Arianne looking at the chaos with a smile. Yes, a smile on her face! Apparently, releasing that demonic beast onto nobility had been the High Priest's plan, even though they didn't even warn the Viscount about it. They knew he had a beast in his warehouse and decided to take advantage that almost all of the nobility would be present at his birthday to attack them. It seems that most of the nobility are loyal to the royal family, even fearing the church is gaining too much power. So they hope to use the beast to harm them without killing them, so that Arian would then heal them and thus gain their support towards the church. They had to be very careful on which families they target though, or they would most likely become suspicious of them. Arian asked the Yuan person to order the beast to hurt but not kill the guests, except for Lua, whom she ordered to be killed. She's a total lunatic, you guys. While Arian's looking at the rampage and smiling like a madwoman, Garrett is in the main ballroom trying to evacuate the guests. He didn't bring his sword as Arian had told him it would be tacky. Yeah, right. The main entrance is blocked by debris, so the evacuation is extra difficult. Garrett also notices he lost track of Arianne in the commotion and hopes she's safe. Yeah, you delusional twat, she's safe all right. Shijin brought Sven his sword from the carriage, so he decides to face the beast while Shijin goes to locate the Yuan person to arrest him. Lua's worried about this, but Sven proudly tells her he's stronger than she thinks, even telling her he's stronger than Garrett. Love how he can get competitive even in such a dangerous situation. He gives her the papers and tells her to evacuate, but Lua has other plans. Knowing Arianne is behind the attack, she figures she most probably has the beast targeting her, and so Lua will use that to their advantage. Sven's not convinced at first, not wanting Lua to put herself in such a dangerous situation. However, with a decided look, Lua hushes him with her finger and insists that revenge must be accomplished without sanity. Obviously, Sven is won over by this, squeezing her hand and, with love-filled eyes, telling her she's more than anything he'd imagined. Oh god, the feels. The beast is about to kill a poor old lady, who also has white hair, but Garrett puts himself between them. Luckily for both Garrett and the old woman, Lua calls for the beast's attention, noticing how Arian made it target white hair, and lures it to an emptier part of the ballroom where Sven slashes its throat. She then approaches it and touches its chest, transferring a hangover to the beast, which immediately knocks it out. Seems she can use her powers on demonic beasts as long as she chooses the affliction correctly. With the beast now fallen, everyone cheers for Sven and Lua, congratulating him on killing the beast and Lua for her bravery acting as a decoy. Your plan kinda blew up in your face, didn't it, Arianne? Still, next to the old lady, Garrett is staring longingly at Lua, but oh boy, don't you dare come running back to her now. In any case, Arian reappears, annoyed and frustrated of course, and goes to meet with Garrett. Luckily, Shijin also finds the Yuan right before he manages to escape, catching him in the act. A young man also appears in scene and appears to recognize Lua from way back, before she even had white hair. After the beast was handled, Sven showed all of the nobility the documentation which evidenced that the Viscount had been behind this all along. He was arrested immediately, along with the Yuan, and they were both taken in a carriage escorted by the royal guard, which was meant to reach their holding place, where they would have been questioned to expose the high priest. However, the carriage was attacked by a band of assassins before they reached their destination. The Yuan was killed on the spot, while the Viscount became so traumatized, he ended up becoming completely catatonic. Of course, Lua and Sven suspect the assassins were sent by the high priest, but given their quick response, they rather imagine they were on standby, prepared since the beginning by Arianne in case her plans went sideways. Not all was bad though, as Charlotte was able to get the compensation from the Viscount, and the Viscount's wife and son are now living comfortably in the wife's hometown, away from his abuse. Lua asks Sven what their next move is going to be, but he tells her that before they do anything, he has to go to an audience with his father, and that he summoned Lua as well. It takes her a second to realize she's about to meet the king. In the meantime, Arian is quite bored in her bedroom, feeling frustrated for her failed plan and angry that the high priest ended up scolding her for her reckless behavior. A maid comes in and lets her know the high priest is looking for her as he means to speak to her about the upcoming annual birthday celebration, a time where saint candidates are called on. In the royal palace, Prince Sarid, Sven's older brother, is reviewing the documents from the incident at the ball when a green-haired lady named Diana and the guy that recognized Lua in the ball come into his office. She scolds him for furrowing his eyebrows and tells him to smile more like Sven, which ticks him off. She quickly puts him in his place though, telling him not to get upset so easily and reminding him that she's his fiancée. She tells him that Lua will be coming to the palace. Louis, the guy from before, expresses to the prince that Lua is important to him. The high priest expresses his anger and frustration towards Arian's selfish and reckless behavior to a maid. The maid insists it's not such a big deal as she cleaned up after herself, and insists Arian will probably be more obedient now that the goddess's birthday celebration was approaching and that the high priest had voted for her to become one of the 2 rose maidens. Garrett knocks on his door and enters his office, wanting to ask the high priest about a Saintess candidate. The high priest becomes quite nervous and shoos him away by telling him he's really busy, as he had all the papers of his master plan lying on his desk. Garrett leaves, hung up on Lua and her image when facing the beast, wondering if she's really as bad as Arian had pictured her to be. Gosh, he's really the dumbest man ever. Lua is already in the royal palace, heading to the audience room to meet with the king. She hears everyone chattering about her as she walks by, but now it's only good things she hears, like people congratulating her bravery and a man even suggesting that she may be chosen as the 2nd Rose Maiden, who is picked by the royal family. Luce's birthday celebration is an annual religious festival where the main focus is put on the Saintess, but as they have none right now, the church and the royal family pick out 2 Rose Maidens from the candidates to play important roles in the ceremonies. Arian has been Rose Maiden for 2 years straight, and last year the royal family had picked the daughter of a noble family as the other one. Lua, on the other hand, had always been tasked with chores. Lua decides to cut through a garden to reach the audience room, but is surprised by a bucket full of water being thrown at her by an unknown woman. She is immediately found by Prince Sarid, who recognizes her, glares at her, and proceeds to demand to know why she's in the garden in such an unpresentable state. Lua ponders whether to tell him the truth or not, but she decides not to in fear of raising even more speculation. She then tells him she accidentally dropped water on herself, but obviously, this vague answer doesn't satisfy Sarid. He then tells her he'll figure out why Sven is so enamored with her before she meets the king, reaching to take her arm when he's stopped dead in his tracks by Diana. She immediately starts scolding him for questioning a soaking wet Lua instead of offering her help or a change of clothes, telling him the future king has to be considerate. This amuses Lua as she notices the intimidating Sarid from moments ago is being completely dominated by Diana. After ending him, Diana turns to Lua with a smile and introduces herself as Diana Peridot, Sarid's fiancée, and upon realizing she's talking to the future queen, Lua also bows and introduces herself. Diana grabs her and ushers her to her room to give her a change of clothes. Sarid tries to make her stop, telling her she doesn't know her, but Diana responds firmly, telling him Lua's her benefactor and not to interfere, shutting him up on the spot. Gosh, I love strong female characters like her. In Diana's room, she gives Lua a gorgeous red dress, which Lua accepts gratefully but can't help to feel guilty about ruining yet another gift from Sven. Diana notices this and tells her she and Sven really seem to get along, noting it's not common for him to care so much about one woman. She then thanks Lua for her courage at the ball, as the old woman she saved is actually Diana's grandmother. Later, Lua finally meets with the king, who firstly thanks her for assisting in stopping the beast and catching the people responsible. He then tells her he'll grant her any wish in compensation and asks her what she would want. Lua asks the king for the deed on her childhood home, the former Baron Restat's manor. The king seems surprised, informing her it's not worth much, but she insists, telling him it's got a lot of sentimental value to her. It was actually about to be demolished, and it had been her lifelong dream to get it back. So she's now extremely grateful to the king for granting her that wish. The king then expresses his surprise at her not having asked for an approval of an engagement to Sven, leaving Lua completely astounded. If he wasn't so serious, Lua might be thinking he was joking. He then tells her that every time Sven spoke of her, he seemed more relaxed and brightened than usual. So much so that the queen took an interest. Nonetheless, Lua reminds him that due to her low status, marrying Sven is not an option, surprised to feel a slight pain in her chest while saying so. The king tells her that it's possible if she becomes a saint, but that's just a pipe dream, as the position has been vacant for 10 years now. Lua leaves the audience room and is going down some stairs when the same woman from before pushes her from behind. She's saved by Sven, who demands to know how she fell and why she was not wearing his dress. She tells him of the previous incidents, leaving him quite preoccupied to the point where he tells her he'll assign Shijin to look after her. She doesn't want to inconvenience him, so she tells him it's nothing and that she's used to being harassed, utterly breaking Sven's heart. They share a heart-melting moment while Sven tells her it's okay to hurt sometimes, when they are interrupted by the guy from before who immediately recognizes Lua and rushes to embrace her strongly. Louis is extremely emotional to see Lua, hugging her tightly and thanking God for having met her again. Lua is shocked but happy, asking him to calm down a bit. Sven also appears, and with a devilish aura, pulls him away from her and asks Lua who he is, even calling him apple-headed. Boy, is he jealous now. Louis, once realizing he's before Prince Sven, begs for forgiveness for his behavior. In any case, Lua asks him to stop teasing Louis and explains to Sven that he used to nanny for her and her brother when she was young. He's apparently the son of a wealthy merchant from a neighboring kingdom, but ran away from home as his father wanted to force him to take the family business. Lua's father found him and hired him for his home, and was loved by all instantly. Louis then tells Lua that after her family's tragedy, his father found out where he was and forced him back home to learn the family business. However, it seems that his little sister is way better than him at handling the business, so she took over and he's been free ever since. He then went to work for the Peridot family and was appointed Diana's servant. In a more serious tone, Louis then confesses to her that he has a reason to suspect that her family's death had not been caused by an illness and that they had actually been murdered. Lua's shocked to hear this, asking him why he suspects that and who could have wanted to harm them. But before Louis can answer, some maids complain about some apples he dropped, and he hurries to pick them up, telling Lua he'll tell her everything later. Honestly, I'm shocked at how shocked Lua is. All of your family suddenly dying from an unknown illness? That's way too sus, girl. Next day, Lua finds Shijin by her door, and he tells her that he's been appointed to guard her by Prince Sven, following the incidents she's experienced at the palace. Shijin then hands her a letter from the royal palace, and she's stunned by its contents. Lua rushes to Sven's greenhouse, wanting to ask him about the contents of the letter. It seems the letter said that she's been selected to be that year's Rose Princess by the royal family, and Lua's having a really hard time believing it. She questions Sven if he had been the one to nominate her, but to her surprise, it had actually been Diana, and many had immediately backed her up. Lua's intimidated by her new responsibility, feeling it's a role that's too extravagant for her. But Sven rapidly reassures her that she's most qualified, adding that he wants to see her wearing the Rose Princess's gown. He then explains that it's beneficial to their plan, as Lua could use this as an opportunity to gain support from the people, solidifying her public position, which may be of use when they expose the High Priest. Lua agrees and accepts her position as Rose Princess, even though the other princess is Arianne. Back in Arianne's chambers, she's showing Garrett her veil for the Rose Princess gown. However, Garrett tells her he needs to go back to his duties as things get more chaotic in the streets around the time of the festival. Arian goes all toxic on him, demanding him to make one of his men take care of it, and even asking him whether he found his duties or her more important. This really angers Garrett, and he firmly tells her it's inappropriate of her to ask him that. This doesn't last long, though, as Arian starts tearing up and manipulating Garrett to think it's his fault and he's the bad one, making him instantly apologize. Arian's getting bored of this, and is also frustrated to know the other Rose Princess is Lua, so she starts thinking of a plan to bring her down. In the meantime, Lua and Shijin leave Sven's greenhouse, but we see a woman with a dark aura spying on them from afar. She seems to look like the woman who harassed Lua in the royal palace, and she's talking to herself, saying that Lua's evil and she stole Sven from her, even saying she's supposed to be Sven's fiancé. She also has a pendant with a picture of Sven hanging from her neck. What the hell? Luce's birthday festival lasts 3 days in total. During the first 2, the Rose Princesses go around town handing out roses, and on the 3rd, they each play a piece on the piano in honor of Luce, who was said to love playing piano. At the end of their performance, everyone who received a rose throws it in. Lua's most worried about playing the piano, even though she'd played when younger with her mother. Since coming to the temple, she'd only been allowed to play very few times. She's now heading to the piano room in the royal palace, where the former Rose Princess is supposed to teach her about her duties and help her with the piano. Lua's heading there, escorted by Shijin, and she stops a second to tell Shijin that he doesn't have to stay so close to her all of the time, but he insists, telling her that they are direct orders from Sven. Shijin also adds that he wishes to be called more casually by Lua, who has been calling him Lord Shijin, telling her that as she's so important to his master, he respects her equally to Sven. She's a bit surprised at Shijin telling her she's important to Sven, as she's never thought of it that way, and she also marvels at his loyalty. He tells her he owes his life to Sven, and that's why he now dedicates his life to him. Apparently, he had been abandoned as a child and was living miserably on the streets of a poor town in the West. He learned to fight from merchants and passing knights, and he was once nearly killed when he was wrongfully accused of a robbery. Sven appeared suddenly and stood up for him, also offering him to work for him. Once in the piano room, Lua meets the previous Rose Princess, Nerne Sandra, daughter of Chancellor Sandra, also a Saintess candidate. Lady Sandra instantly glares at her and tells her that before they start, her security has to wait outside. Shijin leaves, but tells them he'll come in unannounced at any noise. Nerne's quite troubled by Lua's presence, and her pendant falls to the ground. Lua picks it up for her, recognizing it belongs to the woman who pushed her down the stairs. Nerne gives Lua a repertoire from which she has to pick a piano piece to play on the third night of the festival. She's quite hostile towards her, telling her she's not on the same level as her and Arianne, the previous year's Rose Princesses. But as she used to be noble, she should be able to play at least one. Lua responds firmly, telling her she knows how to play because her mother, who was famous for her talent, taught her. Nerne goes as far as insulting Lua's mother, calling her merely famous. After Lua tells her the song she wants to play, Nerne tells her it's too hard for her and suggests a children's song instead. That's Snake! She apparently begged her father to make her Rose Princess that year as well, but he explained that other people nominated Lua and she'd won. She's extremely obsessed with Sven, since they met once years ago and he politely smiled at her. She's been delusional, thinking he fell in love with her and they got engaged. She deems Lua as a pest and wants to get rid of her. She leaves her to practice alone, and Shijin returns. He tells her he notices how hostile Nerne is towards her, and that she could be the one that tried to harm her. Lua tells him not to report it to Sven, as she doesn't want to bother him, but is determined to get back at her herself. Nerne has always been interested in dark, bloody things, and that's how she became interested in Sven, as he was rumored to be the cursed prince. They only met once. That time they crossed paths and he greeted her by smiling at her. But ever since then, she's been obsessed with him, thinking he loves her as well, and he's waiting for the right time to propose. It's been 3 weeks since her meeting with Lua, and she's walking in the royal palace when she hears someone playing a piece so difficult even she can't play it. Struck by jealousy, she barges into the piano room to find Lua playing it, demanding to know how she's able to play that. Gracefully, Lua tells her it's rude to interrupt someone's playing like that, and that she learned that piece when she was 7 years old, as it was the last piece taught to her by her mother. It seems that for the past 3 weeks, Lua's been practicing intensely every day with Diana, who Shijin told her is a great piano player. She tells Diana she wants to get back in shape to play the piano perfectly for the Rose Princess's performance. And Diana, of course, notices Lua has someone she wants to beat, grabbing both her hands and telling her she'll help her make it perfect. Honestly, she's the auntie we all wish we had. Now, Lua is standing her ground before Nerne, telling her she won't back down from her position as the Rose Princess. She even adds that someone like her, who knows only to inflict pain, is not worthy of being Rose Princess, let alone Saintess. Nerne rushes out, annoyed and frustrated at having lost. She runs to the rose garden, where she kneels on the ground, sobbing. Arianne appears behind her, telling her she saw everything and that it's not her fault, that it's all Lua's fault. She then gives her the idea to get rid of Lua for once and for all, as she doesn't seem to be backing down from the Rose Princess position. The first day of the festival has finally arrived, and there's a huge cart of white roses ready for Lua to give out around town. She only crossed paths with Arianne once at the beginning of the festival, before they each went their separate ways, as the 2 Rose Princesses have different paths each day. They will meet again in the piano recital. Lua is called by Shijin, who tells her they should get going into town already. Sven also appears, surprising Lua as she thought he had to deal with guests from another kingdom during the festival. He tells her that's true, but as they were annoying, he forced them onto his brother, telling her with literal bunny eyes that he was sad that he hadn't seen her in so long, teasing that he was becoming jealous of Shijin for spending so much time with her. Lua laughs as Shijin becomes uncomfortable at Sven's teasing. Sven also tells her he wanted to see her in the Rose Maiden gown, telling her she's the most beautiful Rose Maiden of all and kissing her hand. Of course, making her blush. Lua goes into the town to give out the roses and is advised by Shijin to stay alert as there have been a lot of reports of criminal activity in the town due to the festival. As if on cue, Lua notices a man pickpocketing and decides to take care of it herself. She approaches him and with the excuse of giving him a white rose, touches him and uses her powers on him, making him fall from dizziness. His bag spills out and everyone notices he's been stealing from them, so they avalanche on him to get their stuff back. Nice one, Lua. Lua stumbles upon Charlotte, the maid they helped at the Viscount's ball, and her partner, Alan, the baker. She greets them enthusiastically, glad to see them together and happy. Charlotte tells her that they were able to get married after all, and she could share the money Lua got from the Viscount with his other victims, adding that there have also been less demon attacks since then. She thanks Lua, telling her it's all thanks to her and calling her a true Saintess, healer of not only physical, but also emotional wounds. They tell her they'll support her at the recital by throwing in her white rose, as they explain to her that every year it's a common practice amongst commoners to throw in the rose of the princess you like and support more. Arian's giving out yellow roses to people in town, and Garrett watches her fondly, glad she looks happy and is treating elders and kids well, thinking she's a good girl after all. If you might think that she wouldn't treat kids or elders right, maybe something's trying to tell you she ain't a good girl or anything close, but oh well, clueless Garrett at his finest. He hears a kid crying and approaches him. His mother tells him he cut himself with a thorn from one of the roses, and Garrett kindly tells him the Rose Princess can heal him. But the boy tells him he doesn't want to, as she's scary. Garrett is shocked, and the boy's mother explains to him that the year before, the boy had been badly injured by a demonic beast. But when they went asking for help in the temple, Arian had refused to heal him, saying that he was too badly injured for her to help him, even yelling at him for touching her veil. Garrett can't believe his ears, as he still thinks it had been Arianne the one to save him. The boy and mother leave, leaving Garrett behind, finally wondering if Arianne had been the one to save him after all. Lua's taking a break from handing out flowers. She has been given some money in compensation for taking the role of the Rose Princess, so she wanted to look around in the market of the capital. She stumbles upon a little stand where she finds a beautiful small vial of red perfume. The shop owner tells her it's quite popular amongst men in the southern islands. She smells it, and both the red color and the sweet and refreshing fragrance reminds her of Sven. She thinks of getting it for him as a thanks for all he's done for her. Shijin suddenly pops in and asks her directly if she's thinking of getting it for Sven. She gets really embarrassed all of a sudden and denies so, telling him that it would mean nothing for a prince. But Shijin contradicts her, telling her it would mean everything for Sven coming from her. Shijin gets it. She decides to get it after all. They hear some commotion close by and go to inspect what's going on. They discover a drinking contest happening in a bar close by, and it seems a hooded green-haired woman is taking the lead. Clearly, that woman is Diana, so surprised to see her there, Lua locates Louis behind her and goes to ask him what's going on. Seems that Diana was supposed to look around the town during the festival with Sarid, but he became really busy with the guests Sven pushed onto him, so he told Diana to go look around by herself. This, of course, upset Diana, and now she's acting out. Louis also tells Lua that after the festival ends, he intends to tell her what he knows about her family's death. Finally, it's the last day of the festival and the piano recital is about to commence. The high priest goes on stage to say a few words about the festival, taking advantage of the situation to remind everyone how the church helped them during the beast attacks, and elevating the church's popularity amongst the people. Lua goes backstage to get ready for her performance when she sees Arianne. Arian starts teasing her, thinking Lua's worried about playing after her, reminding her she's an orphan and calling her uneducated. She then tells her not to worry, that if she's able to finish her performance, someone will throw a rose at her. This really unsettles Lua. What does she mean by if she's able to finish? In any case, before Arianne leaves for the stage, Lua asks her if she's been using her since the moment they met. And Arianne tells her that's right. She had even told her she was perfect way back then, but now Arianne's telling her she meant she was perfect for her to use. Gosh, she's the worst. Lua is furious, telling her she'll pay for what she did and she'll be the one making her pay. Arian just laughs at her. We then see Nerne holding a rope backstage, laughing maniacally with crazed eyes. Nerne tampered with the stage the day before the recital, and pulling that rope should cause the stage's roof to collapse, crushing anyone who's on stage. She plans to pull the rope during Lua's performance, to kill her and make it look like an accident. Now it's Arianne's turn playing the piano, and she finishes her piece confidently, gaining a huge applause from the crowd. She exits the stage, and Lua takes her place on the piano. With a lunatic expression on her face, Nerne yells for Lua to die and tries to pull on the rope, but is cut short by Shijin. Sven also appears, telling her not to make such loud noises during a performance. Of course, Nerne is dismayed to see them there, catching her red-handed, and Sven tells her Shiji has already told him she's the one who's been trying to harm Lua. He adds that Shiji has already cut the rope from the stage ceiling, so even if she had pulled at it, it wouldn't have done anything. She tries to deny everything, saying she did nothing to the stage and begging Sven to believe her, calling him her fiancé. This gains her a glare from Sven, who along with Shijin, tell her it's all in her imagination and that they are not engaged at all. Sven then talks about her father, the Chancellor, and says it must be hard on him to have such a difficult daughter as well as having problems at work. This shocks Nerne, and Sven tells her that they've been thinking of firing him for some time now as he's been putting his own wealth before the kingdom's. And they even found replacements for him. The problem is that he's not backing down easily, but now after his daughter's crimes are exposed, he should back down immediately. She begs mercy, showing him her pendant and telling him she did it all for him, gaining yet another icy cold glare from Sven. Sven is harsh on her, telling her she has no value to him other than being the daughter of a chancellor, reminding her she's even about to lose that position too. Nerne becomes frightened of him at seeing him so furious. She falls under her knees and begs for his forgiveness, telling him she'll even apologize to Lua. He's cold still, telling her she'll pay for attempting to punish the Rose Princess, and that they'll never meet again. Two guards swiftly pick her up and take her away, while she screams after him. Noticing he's unmoved by her yelling, something clicks inside her, finally realizing he's far colder than she'd imagined and that she'd been mistaken all along. Took you long enough, dear. Nerne is taken away, and Sven thanks Shijin for his services. Shijin asks him then what charges Lady Nerne will face, and Sven tells him she'll be sent far away to live secluded in a temple meant for imperfect Saintess candidates. This will also affect her father, as they'll finally be able to fire him, and both of them will end up banished without money nor power. Lua's performance ends, and Sven regrets not being able to hear it. However, he gets excited by the idea of doing a duet with her in the future. The end of the festival arrives, and both Rose Princesses, as well as the High Priest, get on stage. Arian is annoyed at hearing how much everyone is cheering for Lua, cursing at Nerne for having failed to get rid of her. The High Priest then tells everyone to throw their rose in. Well, you guys, that's it for Vengeance from a Saint Full of Wounds. Hope you enjoyed it. Honestly, it's become one of my favorites. I love the intricate plot and also love to see our gorgeous Lua grow stronger and fiercer every chapter. Gotta love strong female leads. Gosh, even so, Garrett is so annoying. How can he be so damn clueless? Garrett's finally starting to become suspicious of Arian's declaration, wondering how someone as loved as Lua could have bullied Arianne as she told him. Even more so, he's also wondering if in fact it had been Arianne the one to save him when he went unconscious. Thus, he decides to go confront her about it to know the actual truth. As he approaches her dressing room, he's shocked to see her mistreating the staff, throwing things and yelling at them. Arianne's fuming about how things went down in the piano concert, not only because of her failed plans to have Lua killed, but even more so because she noticed more white roses in favor of Lua than yellow roses. That's when Garrett interrupts her inner tantrum, and she throws herself at him, sobbing at him and demanding him to console her. She insists that Lua must have done something dirty to win, and he can't even get a word in as she asks him if he preferred her performance better. He's still in shock at her behavior, unable to answer, so she immediately starts guilt-tripping him by crying while saying he's not taking her side. He obviously can't talk to her like this, so he budges in to get her to calm down, apologizing to her. In the meantime, Lua's sitting on a bench while waiting for a carriage to take her back to the temple. She's thinking about how furious Arianne looked when she realized there were more white roses than yellow ones, smiling while thinking she deserves it. That's when Sven appears and sits beside her, congratulating her on how she did while being the Rose Princess, even calling her a goddess. Lua laughs, but she admits to herself it feels nice to be appreciated like that. She then takes out the perfume she got for him in the market earlier that day and shyly gives it to him, telling him she wants to thank him for everything. Sven is amazed at the gift and has gone speechless while Lua blabbers on about it. Without saying a word, he throws his arms around her and hugs her tightly. Lua's whole face is bright red while she asks Sven why he's suddenly hugging her like that. He continues hugging her, telling her he never thought she'd gift him something and it made him really happy. Lua tries brushing it off as being nothing of importance, telling him it's nothing really fancy, but he insists that what matters the most to him is that she took the time to pick it for him, so he'll cherish the gift. Still hugging her, he tells her there's something important he wants to talk to her about after they complete her plan for vengeance. He grabs her shoulders gently while telling her he won't say it before they conclude their plans because he doesn't want to get in her way. But Lua pulls on his sleeve, telling him he never got in her way, expressing how thankful she is to him for always saving her. He softly touches her cheek and tells her he still won't tell her before they carry out their plans. That's when the carriage driver finally arrives to pick Lua up. He's shocked to see the prince, Sven, there with her, but he remains quiet. Sven then leaves, thanking her once again for the perfume and wishing her a good night. For the days following the festival, everything seemed to quiet down for them. The father and Arianne didn't make any new moves, and Chancellor Sandra finally begged to retire, suddenly leaving the capital to go live in the outskirts of the empire with Nerne. Lua's getting ready to go visit the Peridot mansion, as she's finally meeting Louis to talk about her parents' death. She finally arrives and is joyfully greeted by Diana, who warmly welcomes her there and invites her to have tea with her the next time she comes. As she leads Lua to the room where Louis is preparing tea for the both of them, Diana tells her that her grandmother, the lady Lua saved during the attack at the Viscount's ball, also wanted to meet her later, as right now she's occupied with other visitors. That's when they come across a man coming out of a room, and Lua seems to recognize him. Diana stops the man before he leaves and starts chatting with him, calling him Marquess Santalua, and Lua remembers his name as being one of the 3 families that are working together with the head priest. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Prince Sarid aggressively barges into Sven's office while yelling at him. Sven is calm, telling him he shouldn't get angry so frequently because if not, his fiancée will get tired of him, making him grow silent and calm down. He slams a paper on Sven's desk, demanding to know why Lua's visiting the Peridot mansion, thinking Sven's plotting something which involves getting in Diana's favor. Sven tries defusing him, informing him there's no scheme behind the visit, and it's only that Diana and Lua really get along. However, Sven knows that the actual reason Lua's going is to talk to Louis about the death of her parents, which makes him grow jealous a bit as he can't go with her, while remembering how strongly Louis had hugged her when they first met. Sarid is not satisfied though, telling Sven he knows he's been planning something behind his back. Well, the truth is, Sven hasn't really told Sarid about the darkness within the church, but he did tell the Emperor, who left this matter in his hands. The royal family can't do much until Sven has a lot of evidence against the church, so for now, they are keeping quiet until they can strike. Nonetheless, Sven still doesn't tell Sarid, who simply sighs and calms down. He then asks Sven if he's wearing a cologne, as he smells something different coming from him. Excitedly, Sven shows his brother the perfume Lua gave him while rambling about it, but Sarid's really not interested in any of this, so he immediately leaves Sven's office. Back in Peridot's mansion, Lua's starting to question if the Peridot family may have some involvement with the father's schemes. However, Diana then introduces him to Lua, telling her how every year the heads of the noble families come to visit their mansion around the time of the Holy Festival. This brings down Lua's suspicions, remembering how her father also used to come to the Peridot mansion once a year. The Marquess then introduces himself and asks Lua her name, but his face turns into a scowl when Lua tells him her last name. Lua asks the Marquess if there's something wrong with her name, but he tries dissimulating it as though he's just surprised to see a non-royal being a Saintess candidate. Diana explains to him that Lua's the one who saved her grandmother during the attack at the Viscount's mansion, which only makes his complexion turn even more queasy. He tries excusing his behavior by saying his brother is in charge of public affairs, so he's not well informed on the matter. But he looks so sick, Diana offers Lua up to help him get better. The Marquess hastily declines the offer and leaves, telling them he's late for something. Weird. Lua asks Diana if there's something going on with him to make him look so pale, and Diana informs her that his son and heir has fallen ill with a severe unknown disease and has been left bedridden. This really raises Lua's suspicions as she remembers the mysterious death her family fell into and wonder whether the Marquess's son's illness is somehow related to all of this. Lua spent some time talking to Diana's grandma, so in the end, she arrived a little bit late to her meeting with Louis. She knocks on the door and Louis greets her warmly, inviting her in while showing her an apple pie he made for them to enjoy, which makes Lua remember her little brother as he also loved Louis's apple pies. Remembering Louis is determined to tell Lua everything he knows on her family's death. 10 years ago in the Lestat mansion, we see a young Lua playing with her little brother while being watched by her loving parents. Lua's mother tells her they got the music box they're playing with for her, as the song is one that Lua's really fond of. Lua agrees, and her parents encourage her to practice more piano until she can play that song herself. Louis comes in, bringing his famous apple pie, and Lua's mom stands up to go fetch tea for all of them. As she leaves the living room, she's stopped by a maid who gives her a letter in a gloomy tone. Lua's mom is not happy to have received that letter, which seems to have been coming repeatedly. Lady Lestat is saying goodbye to Lua and Louis, who's in charge of taking care of her while she goes away to one of Lady Lestat's friends' home for a night. Lua's not happy about this, not understanding why she has to be the only one to go while they stay home. But her mom tries convincing her that it's only her outing this time and that they'll all go together some other day. Her dad then appears to say goodbye to her while carrying a feverish Louis in his arms. Louis wakes up then and insists on going as well, but his father tells him that he can't go due to his fever. Lua then insists she can cure him, but her mom gets angry at that, reminding her that her powers come at a high cost for her own health, so she should only use them sparingly. Lua insists, telling her she even helped a boy in town the other day, but her mother insists. Lua also tries convincing their parents to let him go as he's already taking his medicine, but it's no use. Thus, Lua leaves with Louis, telling them she'll see them soon. Poor girl. I can already imagine what's coming next. Right when Lua and Louis arrive at her mother's friend's home, Louis realizes he's not carrying one of Lua's bags with him. Desperate, he remembers that he may have forgotten it on the side of the road when they had come down from the carriage due to some trouble it had right after they left the house. The lady tries offering a carriage for Louis for him to go fetch the luggage, but he only asks for a horse as it'll be faster for him to get there. So Louis hops on a horse and hurries to the spot their carriage had stopped, where he immediately found the missing luggage. It's then he hears some rustling near him, and he sees two cloaked men speaking of a trap. One of the men says that the trap will spread throughout the body in just one night, and the men then leave, saying they'll go get data for the real plan. Louis feels as though he's heard one of the men's voices before, but he desists and rushes back to Lua with her luggage. Louis and Lua are already in the carriage returning to Lua's home, when she tells Louis she had fun playing there, but she still doesn't understand why she was the only one to have to go there. Louis tells her he doesn't know anything about it, even telling her that not even the madam who took her in knows, but he wonders if it has anything to do with the letter that arrived for Lady Lestat a few days prior. Once they arrive, Lua jumps out of the carriage and runs into the mansion, extremely excited to finally get to see her family again. However, both her and Louis find it strange that the mansion is extremely silent, and there's no one there to greet them. Lua runs off into the house, waiting to find her family, and Louis runs after her. It's then that he finds the head maid collapsed in a room, so he runs inside to see her. He notices there's a faint smell of roses and tries to wake the head maid up, but she won't react. That's when he hears a shrilling scream coming from the other room. He runs towards it, wanting to go check on Lua, and to his horror, he finds all of Lua's family members dead on the floor. Lua's desperately trying to wake her little brother up, tears streaming down her face, when Louis notices they all have a bruise in the shape of a rose near their necks. He has to stop Lua from trying to heal her brother, as it's too late for him now and Lua could get fatally injured. They then realize Lady Lestat's still alive, but very weak. Louis approaches her, trying to get her to wake up, but in her dying breath, she tells him the name of the song Lou is learning on the piano, The Applause of Light of Day, and that she loves them right before passing away. In the present, Louis tells Lua that's all he remembers of that day. Lua remembers what they told her about her family's cause of death, that it was an unknown disease her father probably caught during his charity work, and that she hadn't caught it due to her healing powers, while everyone else in the house did. She was soon taken in by the head priest and then started working in the temple. Louis adds that he investigated what had happened for many years, and he met a witness that said he saw some men who looked like the ones Louis heard in the woods, exiting the Lestat home the night of the incident. Moreover, Louis admits that the voice he recognized in the woods undoubtedly belonged to the head priest, Father Flix. Lua's jarred at this new information, wondering if he killed her family so that he could easily control her in the temple by making her an orphan, or if there's another reason. Remembering how Louis had heard him talk about a real plan, which he also talked about when Lua was eavesdropping on him way back before she allied with Sven. Lua's determined to find out what her mother had meant when telling Louis the name of the piano piece Lua had been playing, when they are suddenly interrupted by a knock on the door. It's Diana, who's bringing a photo to her, Sarid and Sven together when they were little, to give to Lua. She notices Lua's angry expression, but Lua quickly changes it and gently accepts the picture Diana's giving her, noticing how similar young Sven looked to the boy she healed when she was little. Before leaving, Diana also jokingly taunts Louis by telling him not to keep Lua too long as he may irritate Sven, terrifying Louis by just the mention of him. Once Diana's gone, Lua shows Louis she's got the property records of her former home, the Lestat mansion, telling him that she can finally return to the mansion and investigate further. She's sure that the answer to her mother's dying words lie in her own home. She also wants to go immediately. Louis is hesitant on letting her go alone, unguarded, but Lua doesn't want to involve anyone else in this. Louis suggests they get the knights to go with her by asking Diana, but Lua rejects the idea, thinking how Arianne might learn of her movements through Garrett. She thinks of asking Shijin, but unfortunately, Sven has sent him on a mission, so he won't be returning shortly. So Lua decides it's best if she went alone. Unsatisfied with this, Louis insists he goes with her to the mansion, rushing out of the room to get Diana's permission to get out before Lua can even protest. Lua's wearing a cute horseback riding outfit Lady Diana lent her, and Louis is preparing the Peridot family horse for them. Lua feels bad for asking so much from Lady Diana, but Louis explains Diana and her grandmother are more than happy to help her as much as they can, as they are forever grateful to her for having saved her during the Viscount's ball. Lua hops on the horse, and both of them start riding towards the former Lestat mansion. As they're hedging there, Louis asks Lua about the nature of her relationship with Prince Sven. She's taken aback by this, and she tries to come up with a proper answer as Louis tells her the last time they met, he felt that there was a stronger bond between the two of them. Seeing as how Lua has fallen silent, Louis clarifies that he won't cry, and he's only asking because he feels as though it's his obligation to meet her future husband as a representative of the Lestat family. This makes Lua even more uncomfortable, as she tries telling him that it's impossible for Sven to become her husband as he's a royal. But Louis is not listening to her at all, asking her desperately to not tell Sven that they're horseback riding together as he's too afraid of him. Lua laughs, and they are close to the place where Louis had heard Father Flix and the other man that fateful night, when they are shocked by the sudden rustling of some nearby bushes. Meanwhile, the deputy chief comes into Garrett's office to report that there's still an area with surviving beasts, so they should take care of that immediately. Garrett orders the chief to get some men ready to be sent to that area, who smiles after seeing Garrett's concentrated face, telling him he resembles his father a lot when he's like that. The officer tells him everyone knows he's been working hard to fill in his father's footsteps, but he also informs him that they are a bit concerned he has been spending too much time worrying about Arianne. Garrett's upset by this, as he feels as though he's not good enough to have taken his father's position. He gets over it quickly and is determined to get to the bottom of his suspicions about Arianne, so he heads over to the temple to inquire about the day he was saved. He comes across an attendant and stops her, bluntly asking her if she has any information on how Arianne had saved him. She's trembling with fear at his question. As it turns out, she's the only person who actually knows it was Lua who'd really saved him. We see how Garrett grew up under the constant pressure of his father to turn into a great commander just as he was, enduring hard training since he was just a small child, just to make him proud. However, he distinctly remembers his mother and how she always looked saddened when he went off to train. Once, she grabbed his small hands and told him that if he's too stubborn, he'll lose sight of what's important. He didn't understand her and told her he had to go train with his father then, but she grabbed his hands more tightly and asked him if he could skip training and play with her instead. Nonetheless, his father appeared behind him, ordering him to go train at once, so he let go of her hands and followed him. Some years later, his father got injured protecting his men, and the damage couldn't be healed at the temple, so he had to retire, and Garrett was the one to succeed him as commander. Garrett was fatally injured himself and brought to the temple, and he has a vague recollection of waking up and seeing someone with blonde hair healing him. However, he had passed out again, and once he finally woke up for good, he was greeted by Arianne and Father Flix, who told him Arianne had been the one to save him. Immediately after that, he went to see his father to announce his engagement to her, informing him she was the one who saved his life. Back in the present, though, the attendant's having a hard time telling him the truth on who saved him, and just when she's about to tell him, the deputy chief appears, telling Garrett one of the beasts has been reported to have injured someone near the old Lestat mansion. At the mention of Lua's surname, Garrett hastily prepares to go help. It seems the rustling sound Lua and Louis heard is a beast, and the horse gets so frightened by it that it throws Lua and Louis to the ground. Lua's worried about Louis as she accidentally falls on top of him, and as she's trying to help him, Louis jumps in front of her to shield her from a purple substance the beast is throwing at them. The poison is spreading rapidly in Louis, and Lua uses her threatening power on the beast and gives it paralysis so that it stops attacking them. Now, she focuses on trying to save Louis from the beast's poison, deciding to use her healing powers on him even though she'd promised herself never to use them again. However, Louis stops her before she can help him, as he doesn't want her to hurt herself while using her healing powers on him. Lua insists, telling him she doesn't want him to die, but he tells her he promised himself he'd never let her heal him, hurting herself in the process. He tells her not to worry, as he knows about poisonous beasts from his merchant father, and their poison can be counteracted by ingesting poisonous sabara berries, as the two poisons cancel each other out. Nonetheless, as he inspects his medicine bag, he notices he forgot to pack the sabara powder, and right then, he starts feeling dizzy and faints. Lua remembers she healed a man who accidentally ingested sabara berries once, so she decides to use her threatening power on him and pass on the symptoms of the sabara poison as a last resort to save him. Luckily, this seems to do the trick, and Louis is healed from the beast's poison. Lua then confesses her threatening power to Louis and asks him to keep it a secret, which he immediately pledges to do. They finally arrive at her old home, and Lua is moved to see the place she grew up in with her family for the first time in so many years. They enter the mansion, and everything seems to be much tidier than what they expected it to be. Lua then notices some fresh footprints on the floor, as if someone had recently stepped on the dusty floor. It's then that they hear a loud thud coming from somewhere inside the mansion, and Lua hushes Louis down as there appear to be someone inside the mansion with them. Garrett and the deputy chief are rushing on their horses to the area of the reported beast attack. The deputy chief informs Garrett the person who was attacked by the beast is reported to be a robber, and it was seen he was working with another man who's not with him now. So they believe he's either carrying out the robbery or he also got attacked by the beast in a different area. As the only thing near the area of the attack is the old Lestat mansion, they suspect that's what they were trying to rob. After hearing this, Garrett is even more determined to get out there quickly as possible, wondering how Lua would feel if she were to find out her former home being robbed. Meanwhile, Lua and Louis are frozen on their spots after realizing they're not alone in the mansion. They notice the noise coming from behind a door right in front of them, so Lua marches into the room to find the intruder, and as soon as they come into the room, a man steps behind Lua and holds a knife to her neck. The thief threatens her and tells her he's gonna take all the valuables, but Lua is not intimidated by him at all. Instead, she tells him he's underestimating her and proceeds to touch him and transfer hallucinations from the venom of a poisonous herb to him. His hallucinations cause him to run away from the Lestat mansion, finally leaving Louis and Lua alone. Thus, they begin searching around for clues pertaining to Lua's mother's last words. Lua is surprised by Louis, who jolted in joy after finding something nostalgic in the thief's bag, and after fumbling some more, he brings out something that may help them understand Lady Lestat's message. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Sven is taking a stroll while he takes a small break from his public duties, which seem to be taking him longer than he expected. He misses Lua deeply and had hoped to be able to see her that day, but given that he's still really busy with work, He didn't think he'll be able to, and additionally, Shijin still hasn't returned from his mission. While walking around the palace, Sven hears someone playing the same piece Lua played during the Rose Festival, and he remembers his mother called a gifted pianist to play for them that day. He then remembers the story behind that piano piece, and he thinks it perfectly suits Lua. In the Lestat mansion, Lua sees Louis has found the music box she and her brother used to play with, and its song is none other than the piano piece her mother named in her dying breath. She remembers her mother showing her the music box had a secret compartment in which she could put something valuable to her, even telling her no one else other than the two of them know about this. Lua never figured out what to put in the secret compartment, but she remembers how to get it opened, and there she finds a small golden key. At first, Louis and Lua can't figure out what the key opens, but then Lua remembers Diana talking about her diary, and she gets an epiphany, thinking maybe that's the key to her mom's diary. Both of them rush upstairs to her bedroom, where they soon find her diary, and indeed, the key in the music box is able to open it. Lua gets a bit emotional while reading everything her mother wrote about her family, filled with love, and as she keeps turning its pages, she finds a letter that her mother kept inside her diary. Louis recognizes the letter as being the one her mother kept getting right before a disaster struck, and to their disgust, it's from Father Flix. It seems that the temple has been trying to recruit Lua as a Saintess candidate, but her mother, knowing the consequences Lua's healing abilities had on her health, kept refusing them. However, the temple still asked to meet with her mother and talk about Lua's ability. It's pretty common for the temple to request a child who bears healing powers to be given to them, and it's the child's duty to oblige. Nonetheless, on some special occasions, the child could refuse if they had valid reasons to. Louis notices that the day that the men from the temple and Lady Lestat were supposed to meet and talk was the same day Lua was sent out to go to Lady Lestat's friend's house, and the same night all of Lua's family died. Lua starts reading her mother's entry for the day she left with Louis to the other mansion, and it seems her parents had in fact sent her away because they didn't want Father Flix talking to her during his visit. Lady Lestat knows Lua looks up to the Saintess a lot, but she can't allow her to go to the temple, not only because of how she hurts herself while using her healing abilities, but more so because she doesn't trust Father Flix at all. She reminds her husband about the suspicious meeting Father Flix had with an infamous man, which had been witnessed by Lua's father himself during a charity trip, even though he wasn't able to hear anything. It seems the man Father Flix was seen talking to was a former researcher of the kingdom, who was researching the Saintess's healing abilities and some other medical fields. But he was banished after carrying out an atrocious experiment. So Lua's mom is really suspicious of Father Flix after knowing he met with that man. Father Flix arrives to meet with Lua's parents, and to their surprise, he isn't insistent on taking Lua after they explain her situation to him. He simply stands up and leaves them, sending his regards to Lua. It's right after he leaves that Luit runs into the room his parents are in while excitedly showing them a black rose he got from a flower merchant at their door. It appears the flower merchant hadn't been the old lady that usually comes to their home, but rather a younger man the maids never seen before. The man told Luit he was covering for the old lady and gave him that black rose, so now Luit is really excited to keep it and give it to Lua once she returns. Lady Lestat smiles and tells Luit to go put the rose in water and go to bed while she writes that day's diary entry. However, she finds it odd that Luit and her husband are taking so much time to return after simply going to fetch some water, so she goes to check on them. Unfortunately, as soon as she opens the door of the room they're in, she's hit by a pungent scent, and the air appears to be clouded with a black dust, behind which she's able to see her husband and child collapsed on the floor. The poison in the air starts affecting her, and she figures it must be coming from the flower and suspects the merchant is involved in some way to Father Flix. Thus, with her last efforts, she returns to her room to write this down in her diary in hopes Lua will be able to read it someday. After she's done, she returns to the room where her family has perished to spend her last moments with them. Lua's silent after she finishes reading that day's diary entry, and Louis worries about her, thinking it must be really hard for her to finally have it confirmed that her family's death had not been an accident at all. She's turned away from him, and Louis asks her if she's all right after reading all that. So Lua simply turns to face him, not a tear falling from her eyes, and tells him that even if it's hard, she has to accept it so she can move on and achieve her goal. This mesmerizes Louis, seeing as how she's not shedding a single tear, and he thinks back on all the times he saw her cry when she was a young girl, thinking maybe she's not crying anymore as she's got no more tears left. Thus, they leave the mansion, taking the diary and the music box with them. In the meantime, Garrett and the chief deputy have already arrived at the site where Lua left the beast collapsed on the floor after paralyzing it. Right next to it is the thief Lua gave hallucinations to, who's in a state of shock and confusion while kneeling on the ground. Garrett and the deputy chief wonder why the beast is already on the ground, and they suspect the thief is probably still shocked from having faced the beast. They decide to tie him up and take him into custody for questioning once he's more stable. And Garrett decides he should probably put his suspicions of Arianne on hold for now while the issues of the loose beast is solved. Lua and Sven finally meet again after so long, and Sven apologizes to her for not being with her while she found out her family was killed by Father Flix. Lua dismisses him though, telling him it's no problem as he was busy with his public duties. Sven then tells her he's amazed by how much valuable information there is on her mother's diary, and looks at Lua with saddened eyes as she remembers her impressive mother. Sven then tells her that he finds most intriguing the part in which the banished researcher is mentioned, informing her that there might be a connection to the person he sent Shijin to investigate, but he'll tell her more about it once Shijin returns. Finally, Sven tells her he'll investigate this researcher on his own as well, and thanks her for bringing so much valuable information. As he notices she's lost in her own thoughts and with a worried look in her eyes, Sven calls her name to gain her attention. She thinks he wants to inform her on their next move, but instead, Sven asks her with gleaming eyes to go on a date with him the next day. Lua's taken aback by Sven's offer, blushing really hard while telling him it's not that she doesn't want to go out with him, but rather she finds it odd that they're going out while their plan is not finished yet. However, Sven insists, telling her they should both take a break and rest at least once so they can continue with their plan with their full strength. So he confesses he'd like to go on a date with her for his day of rest. Thus, Lua accepts with pleasure while bearing a smile that spreads ear to ear as Sven tells her he'll take care of everything for their date. Lua's in her room now trying to decide what to wear for her date with Sven. She thinks back on how she used to consult Arianne in situations like this, and she thinks she might be able to as Louis or Diana, but unfortunately, they're too far away for her to meet them. Thankfully, Mary the maid who witnessed her healing Garrett enters her room. She thought it was empty, but just as she hastily turned to leave, Lua stops her, asking her advice on what to wear for her date. Lua remembers how nicely Mary treated her even though the other maids looked down on her. She's the only one who puts care into cleaning her room, and the few times Lua's been able to speak with her, she's always felt great comfort. Lua tells her she's been worried for her as she hasn't seen her for a while, but Mary simply states that she took a short time off as she hadn't been feeling all too well. Mary thinks on how kind Lua is, and is ashamed of herself thinking of how she betrayed her that night she saved Commander Garrett. That night, Mary accidentally stumbled upon Garrett's room as she got lost while walking around the temple. As she saw Garrett lying unconscious on the bed, she heard Lua coming into his room to heal him. She doesn't stay any longer though, as she's afraid to get caught there by Father Flix and not being present while the head maid does the roll call. Next morning, however, she went to Lua's room to clean it up, and to her horror, she saw blood spilling out from under her door. She immediately flung the door open to find Lua unconscious on her bed while laying on a pool of her own blood. She rushed to her, realizing she took in all of Garrett's wounds in order to heal him, but her self-healing power is not working properly. It's then that Arianne walks in, implying Lua sneaked out to party all night. Mary is really confused at what Arianne's saying, but Arianne goes further, saying that Lua's been sneaking out to party with men every night, so she figures she must have been attacked by a beast as she came back, also saying that last night she herself was busy healing Commander Garrett. This really disconcerts Mary, as she knows it really was Lua who saved Garrett, but Arianne continues with her lie, asking Mary if she agrees with her assumptions. Mary's really distraught on what to do, as she remembers the head maid advising her not to get on Nerne's nor Arianne's bad side as they come from powerful families. She also advised her to be even more careful around Arianne, as they all know she was favored by Father Flix and was the most likely one to become Saintess. Thus, Mary finally decides to go along with Arianne and agrees with her. Therefore, Arianne blissfully goes out of Lua's room saying she'll go see Garrett now and ordering Mary to clean the blood in the corridor. Lua's alive but unconscious as her body slowly tries healing itself, and so Mary makes haste to bring bandages to Lua to help her as much as possible, even though she knows that once her wounds heal, there won't be any evidence against the false rumors Arianne will spread about her. During the month Lua was bedridden, Mary saw how Arianne's rumors spread like bushfire, and even though they all had their suspicions regarding Arianne's story, everyone decided to play fools and go along with it, fearing Arianne's power. So now, noticing how distraught Mary looks, Lua apologizes for asking her to help pick an outfit and tells her to go rest while she cleans her bedroom herself. Lua's kindness makes Mary break down in tears, feeling guilty for not stepping up for her and not having told Garrett the truth when she had the chance. It's already the next day, and Lua is heading to the place Sven told her to meet him at, which is none other than the bench they hugged on the night of the Rose Festival. Lua's still a bit worried about Mary, but her thoughts die down as soon as she sees Sven waiting for her. Lua apologizes to Sven for making him wait, but he smiles and replies that waiting for her got him excited, making Lua blush profusely. He then offers her his hand, asking her to allow him to escort her for the whole day, even calling her princess. How cute! Lua gladly takes his hand and they start walking together to their first stop. Sven compliments Lua's dress, telling her it looks good on her, and she admits that she had a hard time picking what to wear, while also complimenting him on his new commoner's outfit. Sven smiles widely, but also protests because Sarid scolded him for wearing something so informal, making Lua laugh. As they walk, Sven hurls Lua off the road and embraces her tightly, saving her from a carriage that almost ran her over. She blushes intensely as he holds her tightly, catching a whiff of the cologne she gifted him. Sven is exuberant after Lua asks him if he's wearing the perfume she gave him. Excited, she notices it, and he even informs her it helped him improve their relations with the Southern Islands. Finally, they arrive at the first stop, and it's none other than the bakery owned by Charlotte and her husband. Lua's thrilled to be there, wondering how Sven knew she's been wanting to visit that place for a while now. Charlotte and her husband are ecstatic to see them there, and they all have a lovely time chatting while Sven and Lua pick out some pastries for themselves. They then leave the shop and head out to the second stop while munching on the pastries they got from Charlotte's bakery. Lua notices they are heading to the theater, and Sven confesses he wants to take her to see a foreign opera singer that's performing there that day. However, Lua remembers from the time she used to go to the theater as a kid that it has a strict dress code, and Sven tells her not to worry as he's planning on taking her to a nearby boutique to dress up. He makes Lua blush hot red by telling her he thinks it's a shame though, as he loves the way she's dressed at the moment. That's when Lua notices a small boy kneeling in pain nearby. It seems he ate some cookies his mom made behind her back, which contain a berry which Lua remembers Louis telling her is poisonous. The way to counteract the poison is by ingesting another poisonous herb, but the kid is in so much pain he can't reach the medicine store. Moreover, it seems the kid is the same kid that fears Arianne, the one who was turned down by her when he needed to be healed and was healed by Lua instead, and he refuses to go to the temple because he's still afraid of Arianne. So, Lua decides to cure him herself by using her threatening powers, as she's already healed someone who ingested the herb that counteracts the berry the kid ate. Immediately, the kid's much better and thanks Lua, recognizing her from the time she helped him back then. Sven gives him their bag of pastries as he's hungry now that he's better, and he runs away joyfully. After he's gone, Sven looks at Lua with gleaming eyes, telling her it's wonderful the way she found to use her threatening power as a way to help people as well. But he gets a bit jealous after hearing her say she got her knowledge on poisonous plants from Louis. They finally get to the boutique, and Lua is really embarrassed about the outfit Sven picked out for her, fearing it will not suit her. However, he insists she comes out of the dressing room to show him. Sven is speechless after seeing how gorgeous Lua looks in her new dress, admitting this to her and making her get all flustered. He then gets closer to her, telling her how beautiful she is and how lucky he feels to be able to take her out for a date, which obviously makes Lua extremely nervous. She asks him if he's not going to change himself, and the shop owner tells him, full of excitement, that she prepared the perfect outfit, worthy of royalty for him to wear. He goes to try it on, not without first throwing a killer glance at Lua. As he is busy getting changed, the shop owner approaches Lua and asks her if she's Lua Lestat, blissfully telling her she's been wanting to meet her, surprising Lua. Turns out, this lady is one of the Viscount's former victims. She used to live on his property and he forced himself onto her even though she refused him continuously. This caused her to become traumatized and afraid of men, but she explains that thanks to her and the prince exposing the Viscount and making him pay for his wrongdoings, she's now doing much better. She tells Lua she was even able to open her own shop thanks to the alimony Charlotte split amongst all of the Viscount victims. So thanks to them, she's now flourishing, and she feels extremely honored to have them in her shop today, which makes Lua smile and tell her she's glad to meet her as well. Sven finally comes out, all dressed up, and now the one at a loss for words is Lua, who simply stares at him mesmerized at his elegant figure. She blushes, telling him the outfit really suits him, and the shop owner explains she picked both of their outfits out herself so that their colors would complement each other, also adding the detail of each of them having a white rose on them. Thus, they head to the theater. The shop owner even called a carriage over for them, which is already waiting for them outside of the shop, so that they don't have to call too much attention to themselves in the street. While in the carriage, they talk about a gift they got Shijin, and Sven thinks back on the time he got Shijin a knife as a gift, but he treasured it so much, he put it on display rather than using it. Lua then asks Sven what the program of the opera is, and it turns out to be an opera about the story of Goddess Ruche, the goddess of healing. As they arrive at the theater, Lua notices how many people are waiting for the doors to open, and Sven informs her that the singer is a popular soprano, so that's probably why. Instead of going through the main door and causing a ruckus, Sven leads Lua to a secret back door where the theater's manager is waiting for them. He leads them to their own personal booth, and the opera begins. Lua remembers how much she envied the goddess Ruche when she was a young girl, thinking how she wished to have the same power she had so she could also become a goddess. This opera was her main motivation for wanting to become a saintess, but now she realizes she's only full of revenge. The opera ends with everyone cheering, and Lua thinks it's been so long since she's had so much fun in one day. Sven then invites her to dinner, taking her hand and leading her into the extravagant inner restaurant of the theater. Lua notices there's no one else apart from the two of them in the restaurant, and Sven confesses he had the entire manager book the whole restaurant just for the two of them, telling Lua he wanted their first date to be truly memorable. They sit down to eat, and everything is to Lua's liking. And Sven again confesses he asked for the special menu to be made as he learnt her likes and dislikes from all the times they had tea together. Lua feels as though Sven's doing so much for her, so she asks him if there's anything she can do in return. Coyly, Sven tells her he was actually hoping she'd be willing to play the piano just for him, pointing at the grand piano in the middle of the restaurant. He's been wanting to hear her since he missed her performance at the Rose Festival, and Lua gladly accepts to play for him the same piece she played in the Rose Festival. The piece played in her music box, Applause of the Light of Day. The manager of the theater approaches Sven and hands him his violin, so he joins in Lua's playing, who's amazed and thrilled to have him accompany her. Finally, at dusk, they leave the theater and start walking back to the boutique to return the clothes and then head back home. Lua's a bit sad they can't stay longer together, and as if reading her thoughts, Sven asks her if she has some more time to spare for him, and there's one last thing he wants to show her. Sven takes her to a gorgeous place on the outskirts of the capital with an even more gorgeous view. He confesses to Lua that that's his favorite place of the capital as he loves the view, adding that it's his secret place. Lua then asks him if it's okay for her to be there then, but he insists he wants her to be there with him, adding that there's no one else other than him, so she should feel free to express whatever she has on her mind. He goes on, telling her that ever since she read her mother's diary, he's noticed how she sometimes gets lost in thought, so he was worried she bottled up her feelings regarding finding out about her family's cause of death. He tells her she's strong, but being able to cry and show her weakness to him will not change the fact she's a strong woman. So he extends his hand to her and invites her to break down for the first time in so long. Lua's eyes immediately swell up, and she throws herself onto Sven's arms, sobbing her heart out. She tells him she hates everyone who's involved with Father Flix, so much she wishes she could kill them with her own hands. But at the same time, she's so sad for her family, as they had done nothing wrong to deserve that fate. Sven holds her tightly, comforting her and telling her he'll be here for her until she feels better. Gosh, where can I get myself a Sven? It's already night, and Lua apologizes for having kept him until so late with her crying. But Sven brushes it off, telling her he's happy he could stay longer with her and cheers her up by telling her he also cries a lot when his brother scolds him. This makes Lua smile, and internally she realizes that maybe she might like Sven, seeing as how he's always there for her when she needs him. However, she quickly dismisses those feelings, as she thinks it'll only burden their plan and there's no way they can be together due to her social status. They finally bid farewell to each other, and Lua leaves. It's then that Shijin reappears, and Sven asks him if in his mission he was able to corroborate if the head of the operation was someone Sven suspected of, and Shijin confirms it's so. Thus, Sven decides it's finally time to prepare their attack. Back in her room, Lua's living back her day with Sven in her mind, thanking him for making her realize she can still laugh and cry like she used to. Exhausted, she falls under her bed, determined to wake up tomorrow with the strength necessary to follow along with her plan. In the Imperial Palace, Shijin is reporting the results of his mission to Sven. Sven had Shijin look into the mad researcher that Lua's mother's diary mentions, as he's been reported to have communicated with Father Flix numerous times. This researcher is often referred to as the Madman, and is currently hiding within the kingdom even though he'd been banished. Shijin suspects it's Father Flix who's arranging the researchers' hideouts, and as Sven suspected, he was the one to give the black rose to Luit that killed Lua's family. Shijin also apologizes for not being able to take the scientist into custody, as by the time he arrived at his last known location, the place was already vacant, which makes him think that Father Flix might have him on the move constantly. With this new information, Sven suspects Father Flix and the scientists are working together on a plan that's much worse and bigger in scale than the beast attacks, and that Lua's family was killed for having witnessed Father Flix communicating with the researcher. Their deaths might have been a sort of test run for their plan, and the poor surviving Lua was taken in by the temple to be used around. Sven is infuriated, but thankful they don't know about Lua's threatening power, as the researcher might have wanted to do horrible things to her out of curiosity. The only thing that remains is for them to find out about their true plan to stop it before it happens. So Sven sends out Shijin to look into the researcher some more. In a less serious tone, Sven gives Shijin a gift Lua and himself got for him. This immediately makes Shijin's eyes light up, and in the box there's a pair of cute leather gloves, which Sven says were picked out by Lua herself. All welled up, Shijin tells Sven it's an honor and he'll store them safely after thanking Lua. But Sven scolds him, telling him that he must use them and not store them away. Lastly, Shijin tells Sven he has some more recent information on Arianne and her involvement in Father Flix's plan, which he relays onto Sven and makes him think something might be about to go down. The researcher arrives at a new home arranged for him by Father Flix, and he's greeted by a not-so-welcoming priest who considers himself to be Father Flix's right hand. He's bitter that Father Flix treats the odd-behaving researcher with so much respect, while he didn't even tell him about his true plans. Inside the researcher's new safe house, there's a huge assortment of ingredients, which the researcher says will help him finish his poison, which he thinks will be able to make the kingdom fall into their control. Lua's waiting for Louis with a suitcase carrying the clothes Diana lent her so that she can give it back to them. Louis is a bit late, but finally arrives and apologizes for his tardiness as he was held up before leaving. Lua hands the suitcase over to him and also shyly gives him a small brown paper bag with a gift she got for Diana as a thank you for her constant help. Louis, however, is staring at her, and once he snaps out of it, he tells her it was because the last time they saw each other was when they went into the Lestat mansion, so he was wondering how she held up. But finally he smiles, telling her he notices all of her doubts on herself are gone. Lua smiles, remembering her date with Sven. Lastly, she gives Louis the paper bag, saying it's for Diana, when she suddenly springs out from behind him, surprising the both of them. Louis asks her what she's doing there, as she was supposed to spend her day with Prince Sarid. But she pouts, telling him she also wanted to see Lua and she's mad at Sarid right now, because he skipped a meal while working. After bickering with Louis for a bit, Diana turns to smile at Lua and accepts her gift. Diana tells her it's not necessary, but still gladly accepts it, and it's a cute green handkerchief. Lua tells her she got it for her while out with Sven, which immediately catches Diana's attention. She starts going off about how excited she is that Sven and her are sharing a secret love, making Lua turn bright red, but not letting her pitch in a word, while going off about how once she and Sven get married, they can become much closer to each other. This reminds Diana to tell Lua a rumor that's been going around relating a certain marriage, which leaves Lua speechless. Turns out, Garrett and Arian are finally getting married, even though Garrett doesn't appear to be too thrilled about it. Garrett's father informs him about the marriage request sent out by the Trebayez family, which he responded to on his behalf, and the wedding preparations are already in place. Garrett is dismayed, yelling at his father to know why he didn't consult with him first. He simply tells him he answered on his behalf because he was too busy with his night work, not missing the chance to call his own son inefficient at being a knight. He then tells Garrett he shouldn't panic as he's marrying a fiancée he picked out himself, and the wedding, which will take place in a month and a half, is going to be grand because of the influence of both their names. His father then rolls away, leaving a jarred Garrett behind. Rumors about the wedding are already spreading fast, and as Lua walks along the temple, she can hear other Saintess candidates talking about it. Diana had told her that Lady Arianne had been the main person pushing for the wedding to go forward, which makes Lua suspect this may be a part of the father's plan, as she remembers them talking about how Garrett's good publicity will help them carry out their plan. Shijin comes up to Lua, surprising her in a good way. Lua notices he's wearing the gloves she and Sven gifted him, and Shijin very formally thanks her for them. Lua takes advantage of this opportunity, asking Shijin if Sven is already aware of Garrett's and Arianne's engagement. and Shijin tells her he is, as he told him as soon as he found out himself. Shijin then adds that he has a message from Sven, who wants to ask her to refrain from using her threatening power for a while. Lua immediately understands it's because of the researcher being around, and agrees to this request. Shijin observes Lua trusts Sven deeply, and Lua explains that she's just like him, as Sven also saved her. Finally, Shijin bids his farewell as he's off for another mission. Arian's back in her family home while planning out her wedding. She's happy to be there, as her parents and all of the staff there spoils her. A maid comes in, bringing her the designs for her wedding dress. However, Arian doesn't like any of them, so she throws the designs at the poor maid and demands her to bring new designs which will suit her. Arian's feeling very confident right now, and she's about to marry the hero of the kingdom and Father Flix's plan moving forward. So she thinks she'll become Saintess in no time. A butler then approaches her to inform her that her sister, Lady Yumiya, may attend her wedding, which seems to surprise her. Lua's having tea with Sven again, making a huge effort to brew the tea as well as she can to impress Sven. She shyly asks him how it is, and he coyly replies it's so delicious he wishes to have it every day. Gosh, he's such a tease. After a moment of deep embarrassment, Lua gets over it and asks Sven about what he meant when he told her people from the Southern Islands were going to attend Arian's wedding. Sven explains to her that it's more than that, as Arian's sister married into a family of the Southern Islands and is currently living there. Lua has a vague memory of Arianne mentioning she had a sister, but nothing deeper than that. However, Sven informs her that Yumiya was married off to a family in the Southern Island by her father as a way to improve diplomatic relations between their kingdom. In fact, he was the first and only noble to offer up his eldest daughter for that purpose, as no one wanted to send their daughters to a developing kingdom. This makes them suspect that maybe both sisters weren't treated the same while growing up. So Yumiya might be an ally to them, or might just be another enemy, so they should stay alert about her. We see Yumiya boarding the ship to return to her natal kingdom, and she doesn't seem happy at all to have to see her sister again. The welcoming ceremony for the visitors from the south will be held a week before Arianne's and Garrett's wedding. The invitations are sparse, but Lua's been invited because she was that year's Rose Princess, and she has to prepare a few traditional piano pieces to play there for the guests. While practicing, Lua wonders about Yumiya and her relationship with Arianne. Once, when she was going to practice the piano for the ceremony in the palace, she stumbled upon Diana and Sarit, so she took advantage of the chance encounter to ask Diana about Lady Yumiya. It seems she was overshadowed by Arianne as she was much less socially active, so much so that her marriage to a family of the Southern Islands was done quite discreetly with not much of a ceremony. Sarit's suspicious of Lua's questions, demanding to know if she's planning something with Sven as well. This really unsettles Lua, so she doesn't know what to say, but Diana comes to her rescue, scolding Sarit for being so rude. Meanwhile, Arianne's in Garrett's office looking for his input on her possible wedding dresses. He doesn't look too excited about all of this, and tries pushing her off by telling her he still has work to do, so he's busy. However, instead of pushing her away, he decides it might actually be better to speak to her. He tries telling her that he feels as though their marriage is a bit hasty, citing that he still wasn't able to receive his father's blessing and he's really busy with his work as commander. Arianne's face is transformed as she asks him if he doesn't want to marry her, and he quickly takes a step back, telling her it's not that. But, of course, she takes that as a confirmation of his willingness to get married and dismisses all he said before. In the temple's laundry room, another maid informs Mary about Garrett's and Arianne's imminent wedding, and she's taken aback as it's the first time she's heard about it. This really shifts her plans on whether to tell Garrett or not about the truth on who really saved him, because if not, she fears he'll marry into a lie. The guests from the Southern Islands finally arrive, and to welcome them at the port are Sarit, Diana, Garrett, Arianne, and Lua, dressed in her Rose Princess attire. Lua notices Garrett doesn't look too comfortable with Arianne, and wonders what it might be. The group of people from the Southern Islands are led by a smiling man, Yumiya's husband, and after he greets everyone, Yumiya steps in front and greets them as well. Arianne immediately runs over to her, playing the worried sister role and telling her how glad she is to finally see her again. Yumiya smiles, telling her she's glad too, and that she'll be visiting her home during her stay for a few days. Sarit interrupts their conversation to inform Yumiya their rooms are ready if they want to rest after their long journey, and that they are going to hold a banquet for them later. Thus, Yumiya follows him to their rooms, passing by Lua without saying a word. In her room, Yumiya is holding her arm where she has a visible scar. Her husband comes in, telling her she's really beautiful and he's proud to be her husband. But she shies away, thanking him for being kind to her while describing herself as a useless daughter with an ugly scar. He comforts her, telling her in the islands they don't shame anyone for their scars, and this seems to cheer her up a bit. He asks her how she's feeling about meeting her sister again, as it seems there's a dark past between them. But Yumiya tells him that she's fine as he's there with her, also adding that this time she came with a purpose and won't let Arianne get away with everything like before. It's already time for the banquet and Lua's piano performance is about to start. Just before sitting down, she spots Sven in the crowd, who is smiling at her, and her nervousness fades away. She starts playing, being able to move everyone present but Prince Sarid, and obviously, Arianne. After playing the piano, Lua stands in the corner, watching Sven, Sarid, and Diana attend to the ambassadors. She immediately searches for Lady Yumiya, expecting to speak with her, although she doubts it will happen that night. As she scans the room, she finds Lady Yumiya's husband conversing with Marquess Santalua's younger brother, which raises her suspicions, given that Marquess Santalua is rarely present at social functions. Lua then spots a woman being offered a drink, and it looks like she's in trouble. Though she wants to step in and help, she worries about making a scene, so she quickly considers her options. Fortunately, Louis is nearby, so she quickly approaches him and explains the situation. Soon after, Louis approaches them and offers them a special fruit juice from their kingdom, emphasizing that it is Lady Peridot's favorite, making the man reluctant to decline the drink and eventually saving the lady. Lua and Louis are still conversing when the lady they helped expresses her gratitude to Louis for the fruit juice, but he quickly clarifies that it was Lua who had asked him to do it. The lady then turns to Lua, bows and thanks her, explaining that she isn't feeling well after her long journey and is wobbling. Meanwhile, Commander Garrett notices Lua helping the lady, and when he hears Lua say to her, "Stay with me," it reminds him of a moment when he was near death and a blonde-haired lady whispered those same words to him, leading him to a realization. So when he sees Lua walking past, he quickly grabs her arm and calls out her name, confusing her. Garrett tells Lua he has a question, unaware that he's grasping her arm so hard that it hurts. At that moment, Sven arrives and reminds Garrett that it is inappropriate to grip a lady's arm so strongly, which prompts Garrett to quickly release her arm and apologize for his actions. Sven congratulates Garrett on his approaching wedding to Arianne, and Garrett stutters as he expresses gratitude to the prince. Sven then rests a hand on Lua's shoulder, beaming as he expresses his delight about the wedding ceremony, leaving Garrett speechless. Seems like someone is having second thoughts about tying the knot. When Sven finds a safe spot for them to talk, he asks about her arm and explains that Garrett goes blind when he is emotional, which is why Ari easily manipulated him. Although Sven sympathizes with Garrett, he declines to help him simply because he is Lua's first love, which confuses her. Just then, an ambassador approaches Sven, prompting him to leave Lua with a hint of regret. As she wanders alone, Arianne surprises her from behind with an exaggerated grin, demanding to know what Lua and Commander Garrett discussed. Arianne then intentionally reminds Lua that she once liked Commander Garrett, smiling sarcastically as she apologizes for not intending to steal him from her. Lua calmly declares that everything is now in the past and congratulates Arianne on her wedding, which makes Arianne thrilled. She then urges Lua to support her in her quest to become the Saintess. However, Arianne's first plan is to eliminate Lua, while Lua is just determined to stop Arianne from becoming the Saintess. After that, Lua is about to rest when, unexpectedly, Lady Yumiya comes over and wishes to talk to her. As soon as they step into Yumiya's room, she starts off by expressing her gratitude for saving one of her ambassadors during the welcome party. Yumiya reveals that she has been observing the party the entire time and knows it is her doing, leading her to believe that Lua is a trustworthy person. With that in mind, Yumiya gets serious and directly asks Lua what she thinks about her sister, Arianne, and her thoughts on Arianne becoming the Saintess. Lua is unsure how to respond because she still has no idea whether Yumiya is an ally or an enemy. After all, she is Ari's sister. However, she ends up expressing her true feelings and states that Ari is unfit to become a Saintess, and that they should prevent her from becoming one. To her surprise, Yumiya smiles and tells her that she's been looking for the right person to give the information she has because she truly wants to put an end to whatever terrible scheme her sister is planning. Garrett is in his room looking miserable, as it appears that when Princess Diana suggested that he and Ari share a room, he immediately declined. Ari was totally okay with it, and in fact, he felt a sense of relief being alone, which led him to start questioning the idea of getting married. He then hears a knock from Mary, which surprises him because he remembers her as a maid in the temple. Mary reveals that she sought to be stationed in the king's palace for the welcome ceremony because she wanted to tell him the truth about Lady Arianne and Lady Lua. Will he be trapped in this marriage, or will we see a redemption arc for Mr. Commander? Back to our girls, Yumiya offers to make Lua a tea from her kingdom as a small gesture to make up for the unpleasant stories she will share tonight. Lua is truly impressed by how delicious the tea from the Southern Kingdom is, and Yumiya just beams with pride, saying she's so thankful to be married into that kingdom because living with her family felt like a total nightmare. Yumiya, being the firstborn, was always expected by her parents to become a Saintess. However, despite her best efforts, she just doesn't seem to have any healing powers. Her younger sister Arianne was blessed with healing powers, and she truly knows how to play the charming daughter, so their parents' attention was mostly on her. During that time, Yumiya could still sense her parents' love for her, even if it wasn't as strong as for Arianne. However, everything shifted when Arianne showed her true self and turned her life upside down. Gosh, Ari's face is really scary! I thought the priest influenced her, but it appears she's been evil since she was a child. At one point, Ari wanted to take Yumiya's cherished stuffed toy, a special gift from their late grandma, to the temple. Yumiya thought it was a bit unfair for her spoiled sister to have it all. I mean, Ari really did have everything. Their parents' attention, healing powers, and the love from everyone around them. So Yumiya felt she just couldn't let her take away the little she had. Yumiya managed to get her stuffed toy back, but it accidentally bumped into Ari's face. This little evil incarnate got really upset and pushed Yumiya toward the fireplace, which left a big scar on her arm. Ari could have helped her, but instead she pretended to cry so much that their biased parents hurried to her side instead of Yumiya, who had a burned arm. Their parents are just as toxic. In this era, ladies who are damaged often find it difficult to get married. So when her parents married her off to the Southern Islands, she acknowledged they were trying to get rid of her. That decision turned out to be good for her because when her husband first saw her scar, he didn't react with disgust or pity. Instead, he smiled and told her that wounds are proof of her resilience through hardships. Her teddy bear cutie husband assured her that no one would ever mock her for it, and even complimented her strength, which made her break down and finally feel loved for the first time. Yumiya also mentions that the night before she left for the Southern Islands, she went to pray at the temple but ended up witnessing something horrifying about Arianne. So there are even more reasons not to like this witch? The truth has finally come out to Garrett, thanks to Mary, and he is shocked that he treated the one who saved him badly. It took you way too long, you dummy! After Yumiya shared what she saw that night, Lua promised to use the information wisely and let Sven know, as this could be an important clue to understanding what Father Flix's plan really is. Lua is in her room when she gets a lovely surprise from a knock at the door by Mary. This sweet maid lets Lua know that she shared everything with Garrett, so she wants to tell her too that she was aware Lua saved the commander. Mary also shares that she took care of her wounds herself, but couldn't bring herself to tell the truth because she feels too scared of Arianne. She then bows and sincerely apologizes, but Lua simply thanks her for taking care of her during that time. Mary bursts into tears and hugs Lua, joyfully declaring that she will leave the evil temple and find a job in the countryside before showing a relieved smile. She's at last free of guilt, but I really hope she stays safe. Garrett stops by Ari's room and asks her if she truly is the one who saved him. When she responds with a lack of interest that it is because of her that he is alive, he finally understands that her words lack any love. He can't believe he was deceived so easily. But thanks to this, he finally finds the courage to openly declare that he won't marry her. Garrett shares that he found out Lua was the one who saved him, but when Ari asks who informed him, he keeps quiet to protect Mary's safety. Ari chooses to use her so-called adorable face once more and leaps into his arms to win him over. But this time, Garrett feels put off and promises himself he won't be fooled by her again. I am so glad his brain has finally caught up. He's not worried about his father possibly disowning him or losing his position because he's determined not to marry her, which finally prompts her to reveal her true self and call him annoying. She believed it would be just right for her, the Saintess, to marry the kingdom's hero, but now she feels she doesn't need him anymore. Ari then reminds him not to play the victim since it was he who chose to believe her instead of Lua. Garrett acknowledges that he made a foolish choice, but he also points out that, unlike him, she has a darker side. This makes Ari finally lose her cool, push him out of her room, and promise to make him regret insulting her. As soon as she's by herself, she totally loses it and wrecks her whole room. Ari's so over everyone bringing up Lua, and oh my goodness, she's got that totally unhinged, scary look going on because she feels like she's suffering because of Lua. Her outside appearance is matching her inner ugliness. Meanwhile, Lua is sitting outside by the fountain, unable to sleep after hearing Yumiya and Mary's confession, when Sven finally arrives. Absolutely, your beauty is truly refreshing. Yes, cleanse my eyes with your beauty, sir. Lua shares with Sven her concerns about Mary, and when she expresses her strong desire to protect the maid, he immediately decides to arrange for her security discreetly and offers her a job with the royal family he knows in the countryside. After that, Lua shares the info she got from Yumiya with Sven, letting him know that Yumiya actually saw Arianne giving her blood to a scientist who said he needed it to complete his experiment that would help her become a Saintess. The scientist mentioned that they will spread it throughout the kingdom, while Ari pointed out that if their plan works, no one will ever disobey her. This made Yumiya think that her sister might be planning something that might cause damage to their whole kingdom. Mind control? A widespread outbreak? Whatever it is, that evil incarnate definitely needs some serious punishments. This piece of information will certainly help their investigations, according to Sven. In fact, Shijin is currently on a mission to catch the scientist. However, the scientist is lightning fast when it comes to hiding, so Sven has instructed Shijin to come back with more information if he's having trouble. As the air starts to get chilly, Sven suggests they go inside, and just then they hear an adorable black cat meowing. Lua gently pets the little kitty, and Sven recognizes that this is the cat Shijin has been caring for whenever he gets a chance. He gently carries the little cat, thinking about how much he must be missing Shijin as Lua watches on, wishing for Shijin's safe return. Why are they throwing all these death flags at my boy Shijin? The following day, on the actual wedding day, Garrett shocks everyone by publicly announcing at the temple that he is not going to marry Arianne. Not only did Arianne not show up, but Father Flix also appears unusually quiet about it. It's been 3 days since the biggest breakup of the decade was announced, and as expected, it's still the hot topic of the town. The public opinion is divided into two groups. One side, mainly nobles, is criticizing Garrett, while the other side, consisting mostly of commoners and knights, is defending him and believes that Arianne must be at fault. It's great to see more people believing in Garrett, which makes sense since he has really built up trust with everyone over the years. Meanwhile, Ari seems to be losing her reputation, which brings a smile to Lua's face when she thinks about it. It would have been nice to chat about this with Yumiya, but they had returned to their kingdom earlier than expected, so she merely decides to walk around the temple's foresty area when Garrett appears out of nowhere. Garrett informs Lua that his family abandoned him after he canceled his marriage and is stepping down as commander. However, his men and the people stopped him from quitting, so he will continue in his position for another month, until the completion of the Foundation Day festival. Lua asks what he would do after leaving his post, prompting Garrett to inform her that he will continue to work for the people, starting as a knight in the countryside. However, before doing so, he wants to visit her, which is why he's currently at the temple. Although Garrett is aware that Lua saved his life, he's also aware of how much he hurt her. With a guilty expression on his face, he apologizes and bows to her. After a moment of silence, Lua states that she has no regrets about healing him and accepts his apology, but nothing beyond that. She just asks him to concentrate on his responsibilities as a commander until the very end. Now that Garrett has laid eyes on Lua, he can see her strength and beauty, but he also feels that she no longer has any interest in him. He understands that he doesn't have the right to be friendly with her, much less to fall in love with her. So as their final conversation, he bows once more to apologize and thank her for saving his life, while Lua quietly walks away. Honestly, this is quite refreshing. I thought he would try to win our girl over, but he's come to terms with losing his chance with Lua. He regrets his past mistakes, but he understands that what's done is done, so he made a promise to himself that if she ever finds herself in danger, he'll be there to save her and repay his debt. Another death flag. Ugh. He'll sacrifice himself and die for Lua, won't he? Today, the king has just concluded his meeting with the council and assigned tasks for the approaching Foundation Day. Diana greets Marquess Santalua after the meeting since she expected his younger brother to attend today, which leads her to believe his son is recovering well. The Marquess is unable to look directly at her, but he does mention that his son isn't feeling well and decides to leave immediately. As the Marquess prepares to board his carriage, he is startled to see the scientist inside. The Marquess no longer wants to be involved with the scientist, But it appears that his bedridden son was the scientist's hostage, forcing the Marquess to continue working for him. After their awful meeting at the Marquess estate, the poor guy is on his knees pleading with the scientist to wake up his son as he no longer wants to help him. This makes the scientist laugh as he reminds the Marquess that he was the one who supported him when he was exiled, prompting the Marquess to clarify that he just supported him because he believed his research was for the kingdom's benefit. However, he has now discovered that his research was totally evil, putting his son in a coma and even killing the entire Lestat family, leaving only their poor daughter alone. The scientist is unconcerned and simply states that he'll return to see him if he needs anything from him, unaware that Shijin has been following him. Shijin pursues the scientist down an alley but gets confused when the scientist vanishes at a dead-end alley while armed men surround him. It appears that the scientist knew Shijin was tailing him and had set him up. But don't worry, my man is strong enough to beat them all. He's able to take them all down one by one, but because he's preoccupied with figuring out where the scientist went, he fails to prevent one man from throwing a knife at his hand, scratching and ripping his glove. The dying guy claims that the scientist gave him the poison knife, which will undoubtedly kill him. Shijin feels worse about ruining the precious gloves that were given to him than he does about the poison. He can handle most poisons, but it looks like the scientist created something deadly that made him drop to his knees and lose consciousness. No! If Shijin dies, I just can't continue this story anymore. Meanwhile, Sven accidentally tips over his bottle of ink, prompting Sarid to remark that he rarely makes such an error. That's quite an unsettling sign. The two brothers then carry on their chat about the kingdom's two big festivals: the Birthday Festival to honor the goddess and the Foundation Day Festival to commemorate the day the kingdom was established. Today, Lua gets a lovely invitation to a tea party from Diana, and of course, she happily accepts. This makes Louis so happy, as it seems the princess really wanted him to personally deliver the letter and encourage Lua to accept her invitation. Lua then asks Louis if he knows what cats enjoy eating, as she's currently looking after a cat while its owner is away. Louis kindly promises to ask his sister for some tips and share them with her. Darling, what do you think about looking for the owner? I really want my Shijin to be alive! Lua is dressed beautifully in her pink dress for the tea party with Diana when she spots a young man exiting from the Peridot mansion. Diana pops out of nowhere and reveals that the man is Ragiel, the new chancellor who her family has sponsored. Ragiel comes from a humble, noble background, but his sharp intellect caught the attention of the crown prince. So to help him secure his role as the new chancellor, the Peridot family offered their support. Diana also informs Lua that the kingdom has chosen to limit the temple's involvement in this year's Foundation Day festivities, so Ragiel is actually on his way to the temple to inform Father Flix. In the temple, Father Flix is now smiling mischievously at Ragiel, unable to believe that they are not letting him make a speech and they are taking away his authority on the Foundation Day festival, as if trying to disregard the temple entirely. Ragiel presents the records indicating in previous years the temple was mostly in charge, so he emphasizes that the temple must know their position, hoping Father Flix will make a wise decision for their kingdom, which causes Father Flix to tremble with anger. Following their meeting, Father Flix slams his desk, causing his subordinate to feel anxious about their potential loss of authority on the Foundation Day festival. Father Flix then states that if the scientist accomplishes it, they will still fulfill the true purpose, rendering the Foundation Day irrelevant. Still, his subordinate is still confused, which leads Father Flix to ask what he thinks about why Ruche is considered a goddess. He then states clearly that it's because she saved the people from the plague hundreds of years ago using her power. Father Flix smiles, noting that Ruche was the only one who could cure the Black Plague then, and all they need to do is recreate that. Father Flix goes on to explain that this is why he's transforming Arianne into a Saintess. He intends to control her from behind in order to be the true ruler of their kingdom, ensuring that no one stands in his path. While enjoying their tea time, Lua curiously asks Diana whether Prince Sarid is comfortable with them having tea that day, considering his suspicions about her. Diana hesitantly clarifies that Sarid has no doubts about her, but as the upcoming king, he must be cautious, particularly about those surrounding her, due to an incident from their childhood that Diana decides to share with Lua. On a sunny day, Diana's father took her to the garden of the king's palace, where he introduced her to the young Prince Sarid as her future fiancé. She found him handsome, yet somewhat prickly like a cute hedgehog. Diana was always a sweet child, so she greeted him with a big smile that caught Sarid off guard. it's clear he's totally fallen for her. Prince Sarid then underwent rigorous training day and night to prepare for his role as the next king. In contrast, his younger brother, Prince Sven, was labeled a cursed child due to his upbringing. Then, one day, as Diana strolled through the garden, she spotted Sven sitting by the fountain all by himself, which caught her attention. As they sat there, Sven shared that his brother was lucky to have a caring fiancée, feeling that his brother was truly in love with her. He shared that he knows how that feels because he has found his goddess, and to find her, he needed to grow stronger. From that point on, Sven started to show off his talents, and eventually, people stopped calling him the cursed child. As Sven's popularity grew, a movement started encouraging him to become the next king, leading to a split into two groups, the first Prince Party and the second Prince Party. They even tried to encourage Sven to go after the throne, but he just brushed them off. However, one of the royals in the second Prince's party chose to take drastic measures, creating a situation that could lead to Sven being appointed as the next king. But they did not target Prince Sarid, and since many believed that the Peridot family was leading the forces of the first Prince's party, they made Diana the target as Prince Sarid's fiancée. They poisoned Diana's tea, and the culprit was one of the royal family's daughters who belonged to the second Prince's group. It was one of Diana's close friends, and now that she thinks about it, Sarid was suspicious about that lady before, but he was being courteous of her friendship with her and avoided saying anything without evidence. It now makes sense to Lua why Prince Sarid is always extra cautious around her. Diana then continues to tell Lua that she collapsed from the poison just a few days after the interaction, but after the detox, she experienced a high fever and was confined to bed for 3 days. When she awoke, she saw Sarid looking completely frantic, repeatedly expressing his apologies, convinced that he was to blame for not evaluating the threat properly. This prompts her to gently hold his face close and reassure him that she's fine, promising that no matter what happens, she'll always be by his side, and as the next queen, she will support him forever. Aww, going from childhood sweethearts to ruling the kingdom together? That's total relationship goals! Diana is about to continue, but she stops when she sees something from the veranda. It's just Louis, who trips while carrying the groceries, and that makes the two ladies ease up after their serious conversation. He then goes to them to give Lua a paper bag full of goodies that cats would love, which makes her so happy. Mr. Cinnamon Bun smiles brightly before heading back to the kitchen to fetch more snacks and tea for them. After that, the ladies continue their conversation, and Diana shares that the incident was handled privately, with Prince Sarid and Prince Sven joining forces to eliminate the culprit and all nobles involved. After that incident, Sarid became more protective of Diana, but she knows that once Sarid trusts someone, he becomes very caring. This gives Lua hope that one day she'll be accepted by the prince. Lua also feels truly honored that despite everything that happened with Diana, she still invited her for tea today. This makes the princess smile as she mentions that she's now careful about whom to trust, and it seems like our girl has already made the cut. In the temple, Father Flix is becoming increasingly annoyed with Ragiel and swears that he will not forgive him. Do you know what this nasty, ugly guy has planned? Attack the family that supports him, hinting that he intends to do something awful to the Peridot family, particularly our beloved Princess Diana. The scientist is really enjoying himself conducting experiments in his secret lab, now that he has finally gotten rid of Shijin. One thing he's a bit worried about is finding only the dead assassins in the alley, but he's still feeling confident with his poisonous knife and believes that he must be dead somewhere. No body means there's a good chance my boy is still alive. Father Flix's minion arrives at the scientist's lab and shares that the father is in need of a prototype for their secret weapon. The scientist appears to be developing various prototypes, including one that can quickly kill, another that gradually weakens a person, and one that causes a coma. The minion grabs the same poison that was used on Marquess Santa Lua's son and quickly makes his exit. Lua is now in her room, and after hearing the princess's story earlier, she truly believes that Diana is perfect to become the next queen. She then hears a knock on the window and thinks it is the little kitten, but to her surprise, it's Sven, who came to let her know that he lost contact with Shijin. Sven can think of 3 scenarios. Either Shijin is severely injured, captured, or, unfortunately worse, dead. This makes Lua feel uneasy, so when Sven mentions that his men tracked down Shijin and he was last seen on the outskirts, he plans to search for him tomorrow. She quickly offers to join him. Before the prince can respond, she reminds him that she possesses both healing and threatening powers, making her quite the valuable asset. The next morning, they begin their search, and Sven opens up about his concerns for Shijin, expressing that he is always worried about him since he often doesn't prioritize his safety. Once, when Sven was just a little boy, Shijin got hurt while trying to fend off an intruder. It wasn't that he wasn't strong, he was just being careful not to damage the beautiful white roses that Sven had been growing in the garden. Shijin is so devoted, which worries Sven, and he knows he will never find another right-hand guy like him. Lua urges him to tell Shijin about it because she thinks he'll be glad to hear it, to which he agrees. The sun is nearly setting and they haven't come across any helpful information when, out of the blue, a man approaches them and reveals Shijin's bloodied gloves. The man shares that he's currently keeping Shijin safe, so they should trust him and follow him. It's great to see that Sven is more careful than I expected. He straightforwardly asks the man who he is since he prefers to be cautious with whom he trusts. The man introduces himself as Lynn Partis, a pharmacy owner who was once an apprentice to Rosen Shroud. Sven furrows his brow since Rosen is the name of the crazy scientist, prompting Lynn to quickly clarify that they parted ways a long time ago. He knows how dangerous his master is and has been trying to stop him on his own, but he realizes he can't do it alone, so he begs them to believe him. Sven hands the decision over to Lua, who thinks Lynn could be telling the truth, so they decide to let him lead the way to where Shijin is. They made their way to an alley where Lynn discovered the barely conscious Shijin and brought him home through the secret passage at the dead end. Lynn thinks that his master might have used this passage when Shijin was following him, which explains why he disappeared. When Lua and Sven arrive at Lynn's home, they are frantic to see Shijin in grave condition. Lynn explains that he has analyzed the poison, but is unable to detoxify it, so all he has been able to do is delay its spread. But even this is reaching its limit. He then shares the news that the reason he wants them to come with him is so they can be with Shijin in his final moments. You didn't just say that! Lua is feeling anxious but is resolute in her choice to use her healing powers, even though it poses a risk to her because the poison will transfer to her. However, according to Lynn, it seems that the poison cannot be healed with healing powers. He shares that his master was looking into how the Saintess's healing powers function, and he even received assistance from the nobles, especially Marquess Santalua. He acted as if his research would benefit the kingdom, but what Rosen actually created was a virus that can't be cured with healing powers. Lynn believes there could be another way to help Shijin. From what he understands, his master creates viruses using blended poisons from various beasts, and if his analysis is right, a poison from one of those beasts might just neutralize it. During the time when beast attacks were widespread, Lua helped many victims by taking in their poisons to heal them. This means there's a good chance she already has the specific beast they need in her system. To think my poor darling went through all those diseases, poisons, and injuries just to save others? Lynn looks through his books and points out the creature that can neutralize the poison, and luckily, Lua is familiar with it. She's ready to use her power to help save Shijin. She holds his hand, and after a little while, my boy finally opens his eyes, which means her power worked. Sven kneels beside Shijin's bed with a warm smile as he welcomes him back, and they both share that teary face. Gosh, that was a close one. Now I can finally sleep peacefully. They let Shijin rest more while they chat with Lynn about Lua's threatening power, which makes him mumble that it reminds him of someone. He just shrugs it off and warns Lua that once his master learns about her power, he will definitely want to do research on her. Lynn begins to share what he knows about his master, as well as some background information about himself. He came from a poor village and was born fragile, so he was often bullied. As a result, he focused on becoming a pharmacist and began selling self-developed medicine, which caught Rosen's interest. He dubbed him a genius and welcomed him as an apprentice, which began well, but Lynn knew his master had a crazy side. Father Flix was the one who brought out the worst in him with a devious scheme that inspired Rosen to dive into researching various types of viruses. One day, Rosen set out with a basket of black roses, excited to sell them at the best testing ground that Father Felix had provided for him. Lynn was advised to stay at an inn that night, which raised his suspicions, so he chose not to follow and instead decided to listen in on Rosen's secret meeting with Father Flix. This is when he discovered that Rosen used the virus he created to eliminate the family that saw them, which is Lua's family, but it killed them instantly, so he must continue studying it to slow the death, which they call the Black Rose virus. Rosen wanted to use the surviving girl in his experiments, but Father objected, claiming the temple would adopt her and make her Ari's toy. What a disgusting sheet of paper! After Father Flix had left, Rosen knew Lynn was hiding and asked him to come out. Lynn prepared himself for the worst that night, but Rosen called him as his apprentice and chose to spare his life before allowing him to go. Lin expressed his respect for Rosen and declared that he would reveal all his crimes and put an end to them, while Rosen just stated that he's looking forward to it. After hearing Lin's story, Sven asks Lua with concern if she's okay, but our girl just gives that straight face, showing that the tragedy about her family is something she already knew. This leaves Lin in shock, realizing that she's the daughter who survived. They've completed the puzzle and figured out that Ari's blood is being used for the Black Rose virus, which is set to spread throughout the kingdom as an epidemic. When hope feels lost, Ari will come to the rescue and people will begin to rely on her, paving the way for her to become the new Saintess. What makes this even more concerning is that they have the power to choose who to save and can easily eliminate their enemies, which causes Lin to feel anxious and insist that they really need to put a stop to them. Sven thinks that they should deal with the scientist first, so he asks Lin to assist Shijin in locating his hideout. Lua wonders why Father Flix chose Arianne over all other candidates, which sparks her curiosity in the possibility that Ari possesses a hidden power similar to hers. Girl, I believe the father just saw how wicked she was and that's it. Sven and Lua are about to leave, trusting the two boys to uncover Rosen's hiding place, when Sven notices Shijin's displeased expression. This adorable boy seems to feel guilty for tearing the glove they gave him, prompting the two to reassure him that they have it and will take care of fixing it for him. This makes Shijin so happy that it feels like his heart is about to burst. He is so dramatic and adorable. Lua then recalls Lin mumbling earlier about her threatening power, which prompts Lin to mention that he just thought her powers were similar to those of the goddess Ruche. He comes across an old record and found out that the goddess Ruche was born in his village. He thinks that someone close to the goddess might have written it, but maybe the village didn't see it as important. The document mentioned that the goddess could take down a bear with just a touch, which makes Sven think it's just like how Lua took down the beast before. Lin suspects that the goddess possessed threatening powers that she kept from everyone. It is possible that Lua is the reincarnation of the goddess, and the document along with her abilities could prove that she is the real Saintess. Following this, Lua becomes serious and tells Lin that she will never forgive Rosen for killing her family, and she intends to exact revenge by making him pay with his life. That being said, she asks him whether he's willing to fight against his master, prompting him to respond that he is, and that it is his responsibility as Rosen's student to stop him. Today, Princess Diana is showered with many gifts from nobles as a heartfelt thank you for her efforts in organizing the upcoming Foundation Day festival. The butler has such a serious expression, making it clear that this is a crucial occasion to be extra cautious, especially with the food given to the princess. So everyone is taking the time to check everything to ensure that no poisoning or incident occurs. Louis is pulled into the kitchen and misses the chance to see the pretty basket of red roses from Marquess Santalua, which, oh my gosh, includes one black rose! Since it worked with Shijin, I'll say it again. I won't continue the story if Diana dies. Lua and Sven are in the carriage heading back to the palace, and she notices that Sven seems more tired and tense than usual, prompting him to ask if he can sit next to her. When she agrees, he loosens up by resting his head on her shoulder, which makes her realize that he must feel like a thorn in his chest has been lifted after seeing that an important person to him, Shijin, is alive. She reassures him that he can be vulnerable with her, and just like that, our prince settles down beside her while our girl suddenly feels a bit shy and flustered. These two are just the cutest, but please hurry and save Diana! Lua spots a bench outside and, not realizing it, says it out loud, which wakes up Sven and draws his curiosity. She mentions that the bench reminds her of a time when she helped a boy who seemed to be in a lot of pain. For that reason, she became desperate to heal him, and now, looking back, she wishes that little boy well. This discovery brings a smile to Sven, knowing that Lua also remembers that day. He then reassures her that the kid is feeling much better thanks to her, but he keeps quiet about the fact that he was the kid. As promised, he plans to reveal it on the night of the birthday festival. He is starting to think about whether they will stay this close even after they accomplish their revenge. Meanwhile, Prince Sarid and Regiel are discussing who should be selected for the Foundation Day festival's opening ceremony. Being chosen indicates a family standing, thus Ari's family should have been one of the chosen families. However, after Ari's engagement was annulled and her family was suspected of embezzling funds with the temple, Regiel believes they should be removed from the list, which Sarid agrees with. After the work discussion, Regiel knows that Sarid has been giving Diana yearly gifts, so he asks about his plans for this year to see how he can lend a hand. It looks like Mr. Loverboy hasn't thought of the right gift yet. But since he gave her a book last year, he believes a handkerchief will suffice this time. Ragiel recalls that Princess Diana has been cherishing a handkerchief lately, a lovely gift from a friend, which causes Sarid to groan. Once Ragiel leaves his office, Sarid feels a bit envious that Sven likely won't take long to choose a gift for Lua, while he's always struggled to know how to make Diana happy, even in the past. Sir, stop tormenting yourself since she would undoubtedly appreciate everything for you, so could you please check on her now and destroy that horrible black flower? After hearing they won't be participating in the opening ceremony, Ari's parents are obviously furious. They fear the nobility will look down on them and their business connections will suffer as a result. So they hit up Yumiya's family for some assistance, but they totally ignored them, and now they're calling her ungrateful and heartless. The nerve! Like, seriously, after everything you've done? No, scratch that. After doing nothing, you really think Yumiya will ever help you? In your dreams, mother-father! Ari then arrives with her disgusting, bright, cheerful smile and reassures them that Father Flix will definitely help, which helps her parents feel more at ease. In the meantime, Garrett is busy preparing security for the upcoming festival, which will be his final job as a commander. He lets out a sigh at the thought of the endless work, but recalling Lua's words about fulfilling his job gives him the motivation to work harder as a way to make amends. Good for you, sir! Louis is totally freaking out, sweating bullets while searching for Lua. Our girl is super confused until he drops the bomb that Princess Diana has collapsed. He goes on to say that the princess is currently getting a lot of presents, but that the moment her maid came to bring her tea, she was already unconscious on the floor. As Louis investigated the situation, he detected a subtle aroma of roses, and even worse, discovered a black rose mark on Diana's chest. The thought of her murdered family is flooding Lua's mind, and she can't help but feel a chill down her spine as she begins to overthink whether the enemies have already completed the Black Rose virus, and as to why the princess is being targeted. Louis lets her know that he has reached out to everyone in the mansion not to get in touch with the temple, and Lady Diana's grandmother has agreed to have Lua check on the princess. Hearing this puts Lua somehow at ease, and she feels truly honored that the great lady trusts her more than the temple. With no time to waste, they quickly make their way to the Peridot mansion. Upon their arrival, they find Sven already there, as Louis had previously written him a letter. It wasn't just him, though. Sarid also bursts the door wide, fear written all over his face as he cries out Diana's name. Knowing him, he's likely to be blaming himself once again. He comes running to her side. He can't understand why she appears to be sleeping. Sven clarifies that she's actually suffering from a different form of illness at the moment. Sarid grabs his brother in an instant and yells that he spilled the beans about what he knows, all while Sven tells him to calm down and that he and Lua will figure it out. He still doesn't trust Lua, so he decides to call the temple, leaving Sven with no choice but to finally share that the temple is the mastermind behind all of this. Sven assures Sarid that he will share more details soon, but for now, their main focus should be on saving Diana. He suggests that since Diana is unable to help with the festival preparations, Sarid should concentrate on organizing the festival by himself. Lua joins in on their conversation and assures Sarid that she will save Diana, as she is one of her closest friends. This prompts Sarid to realize that Lua is the friend who gave Diana a handkerchief. He glances at Diana with concern and makes his way to the door, saying he'll head back to his meeting, and he begs them to save his girl for him. Lua and Sven are having a serious discussion, and Sven quickly figures out that Father Flix attacked Diana to bring down the new Chancellor, Ragiel, as her death would cause him to lose support. Louis interrupts their talk and says that Marquess Santa Lua has arrived to talk with Diana. This makes Sven very suspicious, so he wants to take advantage of this chance to get Santa Lua to spill the beans. The Marquess is in the waiting room, and he seems sort of jittery since he knows that Father Flix is using his name to send a rather suspicious basket of flowers to the Peridot family. The father even tried to reassure him not to worry, saying that they will leave no evidence behind. However, the Marquess was not comfortable with this, especially since the Peridot family has treated him well, and Diana is even worried for his son. He pleaded with the temple's minion to put down their wicked acts, but the minion simply reminded him that he is now part of the temple's team. In short, an accomplice. He is now trembling, worried that something bad has happened to Diana, but all he can do is hope that someone will come to rescue him from the hell he's trapped in. The novel gods are listening, and here comes Sven and Lua to lend a hand. Sven shares that Diana is currently unconscious and has a black flower mark on her neck, so he kindly asks if the Marquess knows anything about this illness. Sven's son is also in a coma, which makes him wonder if they might share the same illness. This leads the Marquess to mention that his son doesn't have any black rose mark. Our prince never mentioned what type of flower the mark was, but the Marquess knew exactly what it was, prompting Sven to eventually corner the Marquess, suspecting he has some relation to Father Flix. Sven approaches him, acknowledging the Marquess's loyalty and good nature, so he offers to provide a hand if he ever needs it. This heartfelt gesture prompts the distressed man to kneel and plead to help to save his son. At last, we have a solid lead. Now is the time to act. The Marquess mentions that he has always been a supporter of medical research, which is why he decided to fund Rosen's research, as he truly believes in his talent. One day, when he came back home, he found his son lying on the floor and Rosen just smiled, mentioning that he had used the funds to create the Black Rose disease. At that moment, Father Flix arrived and persuaded him to work with them if he wanted to help his son. Rosen confidently stated that the prototype he used will keep his son unconscious, unlike his first experiment, which tragically resulted in the whole noble family dying. It was during that time that he uncovered the truth about their involvement in the death of Baron Lestat's family. Hearing this leads Sven to speculate that the prototype used on the Marquess's son and Diana is the same, indicating they still haven't perfected it yet. One sign that it isn't quite perfected yet is that no one from the Marquess's family or Peridot's people has been infected by the Black Rose. Sven is planning for Lynn to take a look at the disease, and just like Lua helped Shijin, she might be able to use her threatening power to save them. Sven tells the Marquise that if they save his son, he will need to step up as a whistleblower to reveal the truth about the devil's crimes, as he is trusted by many. Sven shares that because the people's faith in the temple is strong, they really need someone like the Marquess, who is well-loved and has the ability to make a strong impact. Sven would like him to announce the crimes at a public event, specifically during the upcoming Foundation Day festival. Sure, if the Marquess is on board with this, he will also put himself in a vulnerable position. Even though he faced blackmail, Sven can't promise that he will completely escape the consequences of his actions. But he does assure that he will work towards securing a lighter sentence. The Marquess's face is now free of fear, and with a serious tone, he expresses that as long as his son wakes up, he will have nothing to fear. This makes our guy give that spooky smile and promise to make their revenge extravagant and flashy. Another ally acquired, let's go! Before the Marquess departs, Sven lets him know that he will arrange for men to protect him, having them come in as servants to keep Father Flix from suspecting anything. The Marquess feels very thankful for his help. He then turns to Lua and shares that he had the pleasure of chatting with her father several times at charity events. He could really see how much he adored his family, as he would always proudly talk about his children. He truly believes it was an unfair death, and he humbly bows to Lua to express his apologies for not sharing the truth he had known all along. As Lua and Sven stroll along, our girl shares that she hasn't had the chance to visit her family's grave, and never got to say a proper goodbye to them. To her surprise, Sven takes her hand and with a smile, suggests that they should visit them once everything is done so she can share what she accomplished. He knows her family will be so proud of her, and hearing that brings some tears to our sweet girl's eyes. She has been through so much. I would give her a hug if I could. To brighten things up, Sven mentions that Lua will be at the opening ceremony, and that he plans to get her the most beautiful dress, which makes her blush. Today, Lua hurries over to where Sven is because she finally gets Lynn's analysis. It looks like he's also received the news, and just as they predicted, they can neutralize it using a specific beast poison. This should bring a smile to our girl, but the tricky part is that she hasn't cured anyone from the poison of that snake-like beast, which means she can't use her threatening power on Diana and the Marquess's son. No need to worry, my dear. This prince appears to be one step ahead and has found another way to help them without relying on her power. It seems that the beast they need is being kept in the old training site, as Garrett has been taking care of the remaining beasts in the kingdom, leading to its confinement. Sven is glad that Garrett is putting in so much effort before he leaves his post. When they receive the keys from a knight, Sven asks Lua to just wait outside, but nope. Wherever he goes, she goes too, and together they'll overcome everything, which makes him blush at how cheesy she is. On the other hand, Lynn and Shijin have made great progress in their search for Rosen's base, which they ultimately uncovered today. Oh, at last, this cat-looking guy opens his eyes, but why does he appear to be plotting something evil? Or is it just me? Back to our main leads, they arrive at the site and notice that the snake beast is peacefully sleeping. Their plan is for Sven to create a distraction while Lua quietly sneaks in to help it stay unconscious. As the beast awakens, it quickly goes after Sven, and our guy here is struggling to inflict any damage due to the beast's tough skin, which causes Lua to feel a bit anxious. Girl, I would have been so distracted because why does Sven look so extra hot when he's fighting? Anyway, she sneaks behind the beast, but it hits her with its tail and she bruises her ankle. Still, this is nothing compared to all the injuries she has had to endure while healing others. The report mentions that the beast has a keen sense of smell, and luckily, she has the herb that Louis gave her for the little kitten, which has an intense scent. She tosses it to the snake, catching it off guard, which gives Sven the perfect opportunity to stab it. Meanwhile, Lua touches it, giving it a bit of vertigo, and voila! It's fast asleep now. After that, she quickly extracts the poison from the beast's fang while Sven hurries to her side, feeling a wave of relief that her injury isn't serious. Sven carries Lua and she feels so embarrassed, insisting that she's really fine. But he just can't help it. He doesn't like how reckless she is and wishes she would let him protect her. They are now back in Peridot's mansion, and today, Sarid is here too to see Lua make Diana drink the poison. I really hope Lynn was being honest. After a little while, Diana opens her eyes and is immediately wrapped in a warm hug from Sarid, though it feels more like he's squeezing her, leaving her feeling quite confused. Sven and Lua exchange warm smiles as they step out of the room, allowing the couple to enjoy their time together. Diana gently caresses Sarid's back to calm him, which allows him to finally express that he has put her in danger once more. In response, she returns the hug and reassures him that she will always be by his side, just as she promised. Sarid breaks the hug to present her with a small box, his gift for this year. When Diana opens it, her face lights up with joy as she discovers a butterfly accessory featuring a green gem in the center, perfectly matching her hair. He then mentions that she can throw it away if she doesn't like it, which leads her to snap her finger on his forehead and remind him that all the gifts she received from him are her treasures. She can't believe that the future king is still so adorably pure, and she offers him the sweetest smile as she lets him caress her face. I'm really confident that their kingdom is in great hands with these rulers. After their conversation, Sarid meets with Lua and Sven. Even though he shouldn't bow easily as the next king, he still takes a moment to apologize to Lua for being rude to her before. He then gives her a warm smile and sincerely thanks her for saving Diana before turning serious and asking Sven to disclose what he knows. Once Sarid learns that the temple is actually the enemy, he decides to help Sven, which takes Sven by surprise since it's quite unusual for him to offer support so quickly. Well, they really messed up by going after his queen, and now he's determined to take out anyone who could threaten their kingdom. Lua is in a room patiently waiting for the discussion between the two brothers to wrap up. Just then, Louis arrives to let her know that both princes have moved to a different room as Shijin comes back with more information. He also tells her that the maid confirmed seeing a black rose among the gifts, but when they checked Diana's room, they found nothing. This reminds her of the day her parents died when she discovered black rose petals that seemed to vanish into thin air. Lua discovers that one of the traits of the black rose is that it disappears after its poison has spread, which explains why there's no evidence left from when her family passed away. After a little while, Sven and Shijin arrive and share the news with Lua that Sarid has gone back to the king's palace to get ready for his tasks. Meanwhile, they are heading over to Lynn's house to make some plans too. Sven asks if she will join them, but oh, that's definitely not a question. Our girl is all set for some revenge. Upon arriving at Lynn's house, he has already marked on the map the location where his master is hiding, nestled in the woods, which happens to be the very spot where he and his master once lived. Rosen is quick on his feet, so Sven is planning a surprise attack tonight to ensure he does not escape this time. The base is surrounded by guards, and with only one exit from the house, they really have no choice but to enter from the front. Sven and Shijin will handle the guards, and while they keep them busy, Lua and Lynn will sneak into the base. Our girl is all set to catch the man who killed her family, and just like that, the operation to ambush the Saintess kicks off. Shijin is on a roll with his flying daggers, while Sven wields his sword, and together these two are simply unstoppable. They then give Lua and Lynn the signal, prompting the two to dash to the door. As expected, it is locked, so Lynn breaks it open using his axe. Rosen is just chilling, totally ready for them, like he's waiting for Lynn to be the one to finish him off. Why is the evil scientist kinda cute though? Such a waste. Lynn and Rosen, the master and apprentice duo, shared a special bond, and you can really tell how much Lynn admired Rosen by the way he always made him coffee and meals. For Rosen, doing research is what makes him feel alive, but there was one more thing he enjoyed: Lynn's brewed coffee. When Lynn ran away, the only thing he took with him was the cup he used to make coffee for his master, as he didn't want to forget the memories they shared. But tonight, he's ready to let it all go and put an end to his evil deeds. Rosen glances at Lua, and it takes him a moment to realize who she is, as he admits he mostly forgot all about his lab rats, which makes our girl really enraged. Lin understands that Rosen has always been weird, but he also trusts his good judgment, so he asks about what Father Flix did to him. Rosen responds that the father simply noticed his boredom and encouraged him to try an experiment that could change the kingdom. Lua was also misled by the father to go to the temple, where she was welcomed, which made her extremely furious that everything had truly begun with Father Flix. The father might be the real villain, but Rosen is just as evil for making those poisons and causing harm to others. As Lua is caught up in her feelings of hatred, Lin starts to sense that something is off. His master seems a bit too at ease, even in the midst of everything, which prompts Lin to spot something glimmering behind his master. Out of nowhere, a dagger zooms towards Lua, but luckily Lin manages to block it with his axe, though it does send him tumbling to the floor. The sneaky assassin leaps at Lin with the intent to kill him, but fortunately Lua manages to grab his leg, making his head start to throb. The assassin pulls out a bottle from his pocket and sprays it towards Lin, causing both of them to fall to the floor. Rosen takes the bottle and pours it on Lin's head, explaining that it's a poison he created that will cause his whole body to go numb, and if not treated, he'll die. This poison is actually the first one he and Lin analyzed, and today, seeing him dying so easily makes him feel really disappointed. Rosen then looks across at Lua with his amused expression, clearly interested in her previous acts. With his sinister grin, he grabs her hand and finds her incredibly interesting. You better drop her right now, you absolute psycho! Where are our two guys? They are really getting held up outside by the number of assassins. Shijin notices that Sven is having a tough time, so he takes a deep breath and, with a serious focus, swiftly defeats his opponent. He then rushes towards Sven, not realizing that the man he just critically stabbed is still alive, and with his last bit of strength throws a dagger at him. Oh no, not my Shijin again!
So guys, what do you think of the story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!